Right, hello. This is the big one. The Promethium science. Once again, this video will not be edited because it's gonna be really long. It may even be like 5 hours or something. I have no idea. But yeah, if I edit it, it's gonna take me forever, and I'm just not gonna do it. So, to my knowledge, this is the best Promethium ship out there so far. On my PC, one of these roughly needs 1.7 to 2 milliseconds update time on average. And right now I have 3 running, even though I'm not doing Promethium science. I'm just deleting it because I'm gonna start using them actually. Yeah, I mean, I'm dropping it on Novice and I'm just deleting it. But the 3 of them, as you'll see, they're doing basically 3,100 signs per second. And you can see they've been running now for quite a while. I've been letting them run for quite a while, but yeah, almost 800 hours, and they've been consistently making this much, which is a lot. That's enough for like 3-4 million SPM. Definitely over 3, like 3.5-4 million SPM. Just to show you the UPS a little bit. Right now I'm running at 11. And the things that I have scaled up in my base are Promethium Science, Agricultural, and White Science. The rest are still at basically 1,000 science packs per second, but these are 4,000 per second, these are 3,000 per second, and this is the equivalent of 4,000 per second, but in Legendary, so 640 Legendary per second. So yeah, I have 3 ships running, so each one makes like 1,030. It could do more. There are ways you can make it do more, but in the end, it's not about just this science packs per second. It's more about science packs per second divided by average update time over a full round trip of the spaceship. So in this video, I'm not gonna focus on some details. Like I'm gonna focus mainly on stuff related to Promethium ships and new stuff and new mechanics. So for example, one thing that my Promethium ships don't have is, for example, I do no kind of clocking or circuitry for these inserters. And probably if you did some, it's gonna improve things slightly. Same thing here. Here I do have some clocking for the outserters, but the ones inserting stuff, they don't have any kind of clocking. But yeah, these are basic Factorio stuff, which is not that interesting, so I'm not gonna cover them. But yeah, that's one of the ways that my Promethium ships could be slightly improved. But I'm not gonna focus on things like that. A couple things about mods. Where can I see them? I guess I'll go here. So these are the mods. Region Cloner is... I'll just go directly into what's important. Remove weapon particles improves UPS. Same with remove asteroid particles. These two help quite a bit for Promethium ships. This is also... And then there are a couple mods that are my own. Robot UPS improvement. This doesn't help with Promethium ships per se, but it helps with moving the Promethium from the landing pad on Novice onto Requester chess or whatever. So it helps with that. And finally, you have railgun targeting improvement, which is also my own mod. And for both of my own mods, I have videos about them. So if you want to understand what they do, yeah, go for them. So I have 3 mods that improve UPS. But the railgun targeting improvement is the only mod that I have that actually changes gameplay. And while I have talked about it in another video, the thing it does is that basically if you have a huge asteroid that gets damaged, let's say you have 2 huge asteroids, again I do explain this better in the other video. Let's say you have 2 huge oxide asteroids and one of them gets damaged and is closer, and the other one that is undamaged is further away. By default, the railguns will prioritize the one that's further away because they don't want to waste their damage quote unquote. So yeah, all that the mod does is it changes the behavior, so they ignore health and they will target the. They just ignore health. They don't take health into consider. They don't take into consideration whether they're gonna waste any of their damage. So that's what it does. To be honest, I think my ships may actually survive now even without the mod. I mean, we can look at the kills as well. Like I've had, that was before. So I've had 2 times where they took quite a bit of damage, but they survived. So that's 3 ships running for 800 hours. They've taken 2 big hits. And I think they do like roughly 1 trip per hour. So that's like, it's a bit more than that. So it's like, that's like 3,000 trips. They've taken damage. Yeah, that's 1 in 1,500 tips, and they still survived. They were still fine. Nothing broke. But if you want to see the damage that they take, roughly, it's like basically like sometimes a thruster on the side. Or another thing that commonly happens is that you get a huge asteroid that gets destroyed kind of close, and then they fire explosive missiles, and then they destroy the collectors in the front, something like that. Anyway. So yeah, there's only one mod you could consider cheating. If you don't, you can go and download it yourself. It's uploaded. Okay. Okay, so to kind of understand like how to approach Promethium ships, because they're quite daunting and took me like 2 months to design this monstrosity. And I was after spending a few weeks designing another one. So I'm gonna show you what I used to have. I used to have this thing, right? So it was a pretty small ship with a lot of thruster stacking. Because at the time it made, logically it makes sense that, well, okay, anytime you spend that you're not somewhere here, you're anytime that you're not mining, you're not, anytime that your collectors are not taking in Promethium as fast as possible, it's kind of wasted time, right? So all the traveling that you do, is kind of wasted. So if you can minimize the time that you travel, which also improves the freshness of your eggs, so you can use more eggs per trip, and you have higher spin. It made sense. Anyway, simple to understand. So the problem was that ship was very tall, and what ended up happening was that platform, and let's look at chunks as well. All right, so what ended up happening is that all these asteroids over here, these asteroids all take up UPS, or take up update time. Okay. Yeah, all of these take up update time, and that's kind of a waste. And yeah, I'm firing at one right now, but that was a much bigger problem with my other ship, because my other ship was like this tall or something, right? It had 15 thruster stacks, and it was much smaller. So that kind of pushed me to think that, well, that ship had like wasted UPS over here, but except it was like this tall, and on the other side, and then the useful the quote unquote useful UPS was over here. Like that was kind of it. So without even like testing that much, I'm like, this doesn't seem good, like, right? This seems like you're taking a big cost for not much benefit. So this is what drove me to think, okay, well, probably what kind of makes sense is to have a kind of a square ship. You want to go fast so that you don't waste time and freshness. Plus you get, yeah, you want to go fast so that you get to the Promethium field being as dense as possible so that your collectors collect as fast as possible. So that made sense. So you probably want some thruster stacking, but you want the ship to be kind of wide. Now, This is the main thing that I haven't optimized for. You know, I do think this is a pretty well optimized design, overall speaking, but when it comes to testing Promethium ships, I can't just add another thruster stack or another 5 thruster stacks or remove half the thruster stacks and just test it and see what happens. Like any even half decent change that you make to the ship needs a lot of you need to account for it. Like if I cut 2 of the thruster stacks, then I kind of need to change how many, how much fuel I'm producing, which changes what I'm doing here, and it's also smaller, so I'm probably gonna need to cut some of the ships so I gains more speed and move the cargo base, and that's still somewhat easy, so I could relatively easily check what happens if I remove some thruster stacking. But when it comes to increasing thruster stacking, for what it's worth, what I have now, this is already at the limit. If you see the pipeline extent here, it's 318 out of 320. And by the way, that's the max you can have. You can have 4 thruster stacks while keeping to 1 pipeline. So if I want to add more, it's not trivial whatsoever. I need to bring in more asteroids, and I don't even know if I'll be getting enough asteroid chunks for that. I need some way to either move the asteroid chunks down and make another set of thrusters, or I need to find pipelines. My point is, it's not trivial at all. And then after that, you need to optimize and test your ship properly. Like, you can't just willy-nilly just add a couple thrusters and be like, oh, look, it was worse. Okay, never mind. I mean, if it's very significantly worse or very significantly better, then you might say, okay, I'm on the right track, but you're very far from doing a proper test to compare between 2 different designs. But regardless, my main point being that I do think probably some kind of squarish design is going to be the meta, but I don't know how much thruster stacking you want to do or how wide the ship needs to be. I do think it's probably going to be relatively wide. So for all of that to make a bit more sense, it's important to talk about UPS and how all of these things work. So the main 2 problems with UPS regarding the ship is under space platform and under asteroid. So what's the difference, right? So asteroids are basically all of these, but they're not the chunks. So when you destroy even the small asteroids, you get 2 chunks per small. But the chunks actually come under space platforms. And I did do some testing, which you can do in the editor. You can go in the editor, and if you want to make some chunks, you can go over here, do a brush. I mean, yeah, you can. I'm not going to do it on the ground, but you can do a brush and spawn a bunch of chunks, and that way you can see the update time that they require. When you have just have a space platform in orbit on Nauvis, and then just spawn a bunch of them. You can, maybe set this to 20 and make a bunch of them. Now for asteroids, it's a bit trickier because you need to actually, you can't do brush again, so you can spawn a bunch of them this way. I think I went for square 10 by 10 because that would give me 100, I think, or something. I don't remember exactly, but yeah, again, same thing. I went to the editor, made a space platform in orbit, and just made them. Okay, so that's how I figured out the update time cost. And just for reference, the asteroids take the same amount of update time regardless of their size. Chunks are a bit better. So if I remember correctly, having 1 asteroid or 2 chunks is about the same update time. I think roughly 2 to 3 chunks is the same as 1 asteroid. So if you have small asteroids, if you destroy them to turn them into chunks, that's kind of the same UPS cost. So it doesn't matter. Now technically, destroying them also carries an update time cost. So you don't want to just destroy them if you don't have to, right? But if you do, it's not the biggest deal. But the one big deal to understand is that, okay, well, if you have huge asteroids, they turn into 3 big. So if you destroy a huge all the way to chunks, you go from one, let's say a cost of 1 to a cost of 3, and then a cost of 9 mediums, and then a cost of 27 small, and then that's so yeah, and smalls are roughly equal to chunks. So from 1 you went down to 27, and then if you go to chunks, it's kind of the same. So that's why you want to avoid destroying any huge asteroids. You generally want to avoid destroying asteroids. This is the reason that, yeah, on my ships, you can see I have a bunch of huge ones over here that I don't destroy. So whatever update time this costs, because it looks like it's roughly like 100 of them and another 100 on this side, that's 200 asteroids that take up UPS, that if I fully destroyed them, they would take up 27 times as much UPS. Now, of course, when you destroy them, the chunks kind of, you can see that like often they fly outwards, so they may get destroyed, or they fly inwards and they may hit the engines and stuff. But regardless, it's definitely better to keep them alive. But the bigger point of this is that I have 100, let's say 100 huge asteroids over here. If my ship, if the, if what do you call it? The height? Yeah, the height of my ship was like 4 times as much, which was my previous ship. I would have, instead of 100 of them, I would have 400 of them on this side, another 400 on this side. But it's even more, it's not that simple actually, because my other ship that I used to have, not only did it go faster, so it was more in danger, because it was also actually taller, there was a greater chance that one of these would slowly drift and eventually hit the ship anyway. So the more thrust stacking you do, the more you kind of have to destroy them anyway in order to keep safe. So this is why I think thrust stacking kind of has very yeah, it has the benefits sometimes. Yeah, there is like a threshold beyond which it's definitely not worth it, and I don't know where that threshold is, right? That's one of the points of my did I mess up my ship? I did. I guess this is a nice way to talk about another thing about ships, right? Because I messed it up. So if you look at my ship here and you look at which actual chunks of the map have been revealed, you can see there's a bit of extra chunks here, but besides that, it's kind of squarish. But here I have revealed a few, which I did not mean to, and here I have revealed one less than here. So I guess maybe here I have revealed one extra because sometimes I'm flying around in the editor. But there's another important thing that has to do again with the update time cost of space platforms and whatever asteroid. If I go now in the editor, because now I'm in remote view, right? I'm not in the editor. But if I change that and go into editor mode, actually I'll just do that. I'm just gonna reload. It's fine. If I go in the editor and I go and start flying around, you see that it's being revealed. And there's nothing here. There's no asteroids. But you'll notice as I keep going, like the space platform will just keep increasing and increasing. It's gonna take a while, but it's just gonna keep increasing. Because it seems like once you reveal this, it doesn't matter whether something happened or what. It just gonna, I don't know, it's doing the game is doing something over here that takes up update time. And maybe I should go to, hold on, maybe I should go to an empty file to showcase this, because it's hard to see here. Alright, so now you can see space platforms is down to like 0.02, right? But I'm gonna start flying around and you'll see that it will start increasing. It does take a while. Maybe it's not increasing. I'm I'm not sure. Okay. I'm pretty. Maybe they, for all I know, maybe they passed it. But for sure, at some point, it was increasing. If anything, it seems to be decreasing even more. Maybe they did patch it. I don't know. Actually, you know what's a good test? Hold on, I'm gonna pause the recording. Okay, let's try this again. I have my white science ship, which I finished a couple days ago. And where is it? It's 0.4, 455, whether 40, 50 microseconds. As far as I remember, this does matter. And the reason I'm trying to talk about this is because, okay, fine, this is a problem in the editor, but what about the real game? And unless they fix it, which looks like they may actually have fixed this. In the actual game, this can happen too. If you make, if you start making a ship and you make it this big, and then you change your mind, you're like, okay, I'll just delete this part and this part and this part. It may still be an issue. It may still lag a lot. Actually, hold on. I know how to test this. Okay, hold on. Give me another minute. Okay. Here I am with my old Promethium ship, going 1500 kilometers per second, and needing an update time that is way above what my current ships do, which are way, way, way better. Let me close these just in case. Nope, still 4 milliseconds. Yeah, my new ones actually do way more SPM, and they require less than half of that. So this one, I don't even know what I was doing here, but yeah, well, yeah, that's what I remember. Roughly 600 per second. You can see the space platform is like 2.5, and if you remember my actual game, I was at 1.5 with 3 of them running around. So now if I start, oh, actually I know how to do this. This is what I did to check. So it's at 2.5. So it's gonna take a while to delete all of this. As far as I remember, it still went. Let me see, is it actually deleting? Is it actually deleting anywhere? I think it is. Okay, I'm gonna pause until it's deleted. Okay, so I finally managed to delete it, and you can see space platforms is still like 2.3, 2.5, and you could say, well, maybe it's because it's still like in the Promethium field, and these are still doing something further down, but you can see they're disappearing here, but this is still like 2.5, which is crazy high, right? So this is what got me worried. Yeah, so I think maybe what's happening is that only if you go further down and explore in that direction, maybe that's what stays forever. So if I do platform, you can see the platform bounds have changed. It looks normal, right? It looks normal, but I guarantee you, if I build just this part of the ship and then fly it in here, it's not gonna get 2.5. Right, my new ship, it gets way more asteroids destroyed. We can even look at it. Like right now it's killing 1k. Yeah, my new ship goes up to 3k per minute. So it gets a lot more asteroids on the screen, and yeah, it doesn't get anywhere near that much. So yeah, be cautious. Ideally, when you design a ship, finish the design, and then make a new one in your game, build it, and never go towards it in the editor. Never, don't make it bigger, don't make it wider or taller in either direction, and then cut it back down. You can reduce as long as you keep to the bounding box that it has original when you build it. That's fine. Oh. Alright, it died from big biters because I made it slow down, so it couldn't get enough Promethium in time. Anyway, this shows you one of the big issues with having a really tall ship. It's really bad for UPS, and the speed may not even be worth it. So going back to what I end up with, and why I went with kind of a wide design. Again, you can see here I have 3 ships and space platforms is 1.5 only. And they're much wider, right? So, something else to understand is I will make a link to a Reddit post. You can read there, well, what the original poster has written, and then maybe if it helps, you can read. I commented on that post under my name on Reddit is Con the Turtle. So read the post, maybe read my response to it and the responses by the original poster. Kind of understand how the spawning of asteroids work. But the basic idea is the way they've done it is if you double the speed, roughly speaking, you will get double the amount of asteroids spawning in total, right, over this whole area. If you double the width and stay at the same speed, same thing, you will double the asteroids that you get, but if your ship was half the width, then you got this many asteroids. So if you double the width, all it means is that, oh, I'm also getting this many asteroids. So you're getting more asteroids, but they're spread out. It's kind of what you would expect. It's like width doesn't really affect it if you think about it. If you stay the same speed, it's what you would normally expect, right? You get more asteroids, but they're spread out evenly. Like the distribution of asteroids over this area doesn't change with the width. It changes with the speed, and of course it depends on where you're going. That's obvious, but it doesn't just change based on that. So what does that mean? The reason I think going wide is good is because, well, you can only make one collector work as much as possible, right? Like one collector, if it has like if it has, kind of like now, if it has stuff to pick up from where they're right next to it, if you go in the editor and do the thing I said where you just go and spawn a bunch of chunks, a crap load of chunks right all over the place, then you can have 3 inserters working non-stop, but barely. A more realistic scenario, which is what's happening here, is you get maybe 2 inserters working on average. So 15 chunks per second is a realistic scenario if you push the ship to its limit. But again, going back to what I was saying, pushing it to the limit, pushing this more to the limit means you need more speed, which is bad. So there is a perfect balance, and that's kind of the main thing that I'm leaving for other people to explore, like trying to make the ship less wide or even more wide, more or less thrust stacking, and seeing if they can come up with a better design. But the general design philosophy, that's why it kind of makes sense. So I'm gonna get more collectors, spread out the chunks, the asteroids, because at the end of the day I want to collect, why overload the collectors and try to push them to that limit? Like The only benefit you gain by having a more dense and less wide ship is that the damage done by rockets and railgun turrets, because they do, area of effect or whatever, they do damage to multiple targets. It's you do more damage per UPS cost of the turrets and the ammo production. So that's the only benefit you really get from going fast and having a thin ship and not very wide ship. Okay. So yeah. So that kind of talks about the design philosophy, and the main reason I went for a wide ship and a kind of squarish pattern. Now, when I was first designing these spaceships, I still wasn't sure whether a chunk hauler would be better, because the idea behind a chunk hauler would be, okay, well, if the whole problem of Promethium ships is that the asteroids are really badly optimized, which is the common perception out there. Well, if I have a chunk hauler, I can make it go slow and pick up every single chunk, because if you'll notice, some of the chunks actually do crash onto my ship. I don't pick up all of them. I pick up like roughly 80-90%. But that seems bad, right? So why not just have the ship go slow and just pick up every single one? And yeah, then just go back to nauvis, really simple, and do the stuff there. The problem with chunk haulers is that if you go really slow, then you run into another issue, which is basically the same thing in reverse. What I talked about before is that suddenly the UPS cost of your turrets and ammo production takes up a bigger chunk, because as you'll see, maybe I can go on novice so that's a bit more clear. So asteroid takes quite a bit, 1 millisecond. Asteroid collector also takes up quite a bit, 1.7, actually more than asteroids. Beam is lasers basically, although lasers are also under turret, but you can already see turret is like quite a bit already. What else we got? Explosion is nothing, but that's because of one of the mods. We also have projectile. These are the rockets. So you see that's also quite a bit, 1 millisecond. And I guess that's it, but that also doesn't take into account ammo production and inserting it and all that. So that's the other part that's kind of missing from the equation that people may not think about that much, that the the turrets also take up quite a bit of UPS, right? So it's not just the asteroids and the collectors. Which means that if the asteroids are flying very slowly towards you, then you're not getting as much damage. How can I say, per ammo used, per ammo consumed, whether it's railgun ammo or explosive rocket, you're getting less chunks for each one of them. That's one way to think about it. So that's one problem with chunk haulers, and by definition, chunk haulers will be slower than any ship that you do that doesn't, from any ship that actually brings the eggs out in substantial amount, turns them into Promethium and then comes back. Like if I change, let's put it this way, if I change this to a chunk hauler, all it would do is slow down. I would just have a lot more belts and it would slow down. And yeah, what's the benefit? If you think about it that way, like what's the benefit really? Right, so I think, I don't know if I convinced you, but I think in my mind at least, conclusively, chunk haulers, in terms of being the meta for, SPM divided by update time, unless, the developers make some big change to the UPS and how costly everything is, chunk haulers are definitely not the meta. I do think some kind of relatively wide and probably squarish ship is going to be the meta. Okay, so that's it for the general design philosophy, and that would only took 30 minutes. I guess I also talked about some other stuff and made you aware of some other issues. So let's talk a bit more about other important design philosophies. I already talked about trying to keep huge asteroids alive here because they take up less UPS than if you destroy them. Another important detail, which you may have already noticed, that my rocket turrets have all the quality is all over the place, and my railguns are epic quality, and that's very. There's a good reason for it. So if we think about it again from a conceptual standpoint, we want to maximize the damage that's done from railguns and explosive rockets. Right, per explosive rocket and per railgun ammo, we want to maximize the damage that they do, because, and specifically damage that is actually useful. So if, going back to the issue about the railguns and their targeting algorithm, if a rocket turret does damage to a huge asteroid, that's completely meaningless. It gives you zero benefit. Now, railgun, whatever it shoots, it's always good, right? But yeah. We want to maximize the useful damage, because that means less ammo production, less turret activate, just less UPS, less update time for the turrets and the ammo production. Cool, that makes sense. And more chunks for each one. The second concept, which is important to understand, is that, again, if you destroy the asteroids, all the way from huge to chunks, they take up roughly 27 times as much update time. But something you'll notice is that the collectors can only pick up from here. They can't pick up from further away. So when you destroy the asteroids all the way back here, then they're gonna have 27 times as much update time cost from here to here for no benefit to you. So that's the second part of the equation. So in terms of that, you want to destroy, I mean, ideally you would destroy them right here, right? And then these guys would pick up, the collectors would pick up instantly. Now, of course, you have the third variable here, which is obviously the closer you destroy them, the more likely, the more dangerous it is to your spaceship. So, there are three variables here at stake, and this is why Promethium ships are hard to figure out. And you need to find a good balance between them. And this is why I've set this balance, kind of, and I'll talk about it more later, but I just want to talk about this general concept of destroying as close to the collectors as possible without your ship taking too much damage. Which brings me on to another question about the spaceship, which is some people, and it's fine if you prefer it for funsies, but in terms of the meta for UPS or efficiency, your collectors compete for space with railguns. You want to use as few railguns as possible while remaining safe. But as I've already stated, I do take damage on my spaceships. Some of it is also from the biter spawning. Well, I'll talk about that later. That's probably the ideal position to be. It's okay to take some damage as long as it's not too much and you run out of, I don't know, legendary materials on Nauvis or whatever. But if you're taking no damage, you probably have too much firepower and not enough collectors. Probably. Not necessarily, but probably. So usually my guess is the sweet point is where you're taking some damage but never catastrophic damage, like your ship always keeps going, and you have replacements. You can see here I have replacement parts for anything that gets destroyed. So that's another kind of design philosophy. The last, I wouldn't exactly call it design philosophy. I guess I'll talk about the general things that I've done that improved things, UPS, or science per second, and then I'll go into details. Maybe that's the best way to address it. So if people don't want any of the details, or they want to figure them out for themselves, then they can stop the video and not watch a whole fucking 5-hour video or however long that is going to be. Asteroid collectors, apparently you can clock them, and that helps with UPS. So it's a very simple clocking. I just have a clock that counts, it says 5, but it's actually 6 ticks, and then they become active for 1 tick. This could be 0. So what happens is that 1 tick they're active, 5 ticks they're inactive. And I think what happens behind, you know, I'm not sure what happens. I haven't asked a developer. But I think what happens is, let me go to another one because these guys are done. When they're active, they check what can I pick up. Okay, and if they find targets, they will go and pick it up. And then if they get disabled after that, the hands will still go and pick up what they've decided to pick up. They're kind of like inserters, where if you disable them, after they've decided to, you know, after they've picked up something and they've decided to go and drop it off, they will continue moving and drop it off and then turn back to be ready to pick up again, even if they're disabled. So it's kind of the same idea. If they've decided they're going to pick up something, their hand will extend, pick it up, and then retract back. Now what happens is that I imagine when they're disabled, it's kind of like inserters. They, you know, you kind of want to disable inserters so that they either don't, basically they don't track whatever their source is from. So from a typical, you know, assembly machine, when you want to take out of the assembly machines, every time the machine crafts, they check, should I pick up? So for a stack inserter, generally they will check 16 times before they pick up the whole thing. So you clock them so that they only check once every, you know, however long it takes for it to craft 16. And then when you insert into the machine, they both check the machine and they also check, can I pick up from the belt? So it's kind of the same. I think what's happening is basically the same. It's like they're checking at all times, can I pick up? Should I pick up? Even if all their hands are moving or they're full, so even if there's no hand available for them to move and find another target, they are still tracking everything. I think that's what's happening. I don't know what is actually happening, but there is a UPS benefit to locking the collectors. Now, in terms of clocking them, that does mean that when they are, if they do pick up something, right? Let's say they pick up something, the same tick that I activated them, and then they're disabled for 5 ticks. During those 5 ticks, they're gonna start retracting the arm when they could have found another chunk to go and pick up. So those 5 ticks for that arm may be wasted. So that does mean that in practice, you know, the less frequently they are active, the less throughput they're going to have. But there is a sweet spot, you know, which in my case I found to be, if I remember correctly, it was anywhere from, it was always one tick active, and then how many they are inactive, I think between 4 and 10 was fine for my ship, and I went for 6 or 5 or something, I don't remember. I think I specifically went for that because for some other, I think the actual optimal was either 6, I think it was either 6 or 4, I don't remember. But anyway, I went with 5 for some other detail which doesn't really matter. Basically to get round numbers here, because I'm doing 1 million eggs. If I go, I think the optimal was to get like 1,120,000 eggs or something like that with the optimal here, but it didn't make much of a difference in the end, so I went with this just just for funsies. But yeah, there is a, so most likely in your spaceships, if you do clock them, which again it's a very simple clock, nothing too special, what you'll end up finding is that if you again see signs created per second divided by update time, you will easily see a benefit. Even if you just set this to 1 or 2 or something, you will easily see a benefit to that ratio. At some point it's gonna hit its peak, which for me was roughly here, and after that it's gonna be objectively worse. Both metrics are gonna keep worsening. Alright, so those are some of the design philosophies. I mean, some other things that I can talk about is that over here I have the chunks that are not Promethium are collected here, but I do also collect some Promethium from here. Also very much optimized how many railguns and explosive rockets I need. Like I went, so I mean, let me give you specifics a little bit. No, not global. So for example, for railguns, you can see it peaks at like 1.6k. So I guess I started with making 1.6k per second, and then I kept dropping it, maybe one assembler at a time, until it was fine. Because yeah, you need 1.6k at the peak, but there's also a big belt which buffers a lot. So yeah, the belt goes all the way from there to here, and then back out to all of them from here. So because of that buffer, I could remove some machines, which reduce the saves me space, so the ship can go faster. What else? You also need to do some thruster throttling. You can also see it over here. And by the way, that's gonna, if you remember, my other ship only did 1k per minute at its peak, and it's doing like 2.7 on average. That's also kind of an important detail. You do kind of want to have this little thing that looks like a cat, looks like the pushing cat, or yeah. The reason is when you first get into the Promethium field. I mean, maybe it's easier if I go with this ship, because now it's going to show. So what happens is the ship arrives. When it first arrives, actually maybe it is easier with this one. Okay, so this is on Nauvis right now. And you can see I have some Promethium on the belts. So when it leaves Nauvis, it's gonna use all of these Promethium chunks to turn into science, because this is what was left over after I when I left the Promethium field. So what happens is you use it all up. So when you first enter the Promethium field, you know, like this ship is doing right now, the belts are empty. So the whole goal of doing this kind of thing, where you let the ship go faster than how much you want to consume on average, and the reason is to oversaturate these belts. You know, I have more belts than I'm actually consuming here, so I want them to, all of them to be quite saturated. So that's why it's going fast at the start. Then you kind of try to do thruster throttling so that your ship goes. You know, you basically want to keep at the balance so that none of the collectors ever get stuck because the belt is full that they're outputting. But also, you don't go so slow that any of these are not producing at max capacity. And by the way, here again, let me reiterate why designing Promethium ships is so hard. The last thing I did on my Promethium ship, which was basically my last idea, was this collector clocking. But I said collector clocking affects how much Promethium chunks you're gathering. So you do less SPM, but you gain UPS. The problem is I did all of my thruster throttling decisions, which are down here, and I'll go into them into the detail when I go into the details. I did them before I did this. But if you do this, it changes everything. So you need to do the thruster throttling again, which honestly takes like a full day, because it's not like you can speed it up that much in the editor if you want to do it properly. So yeah, this kind of gives you the idea why really optimizing a Prometheus ship takes a long time. This easily took me over 100 hours. I have no idea how many actually. I would say I've spent over 200 hours just on Prometheum ships, and that's probably an underestimate. So just to give you a bit of an idea, what I'm talking about is, although these are, if I were to do it all over again, I'd change how I do the throttling, because what this number means is that 77% of the time, these ones are inactive. That's what that 77 here meant. So it means if I'm between 525,000 kilometers and 550, and I'm leaving, yeah, I think this is leaving the Promethium, the Saturn planet, then disable this 77% of the time. If I were to redo this, I would change this so that it's based on the speed specifically, which is like if I'm below the speed, keep going. So basically so that these are at target speed or something rather than how often these are disabled. But anyway, just because they're more intuitive, it doesn't matter in practice, because in practice you don't know what actual speed you need. You can kind of guess if you go into the thread that I talked about, that I will have in a link in the description, that talks about. There is a thread that talks about these things and how you can calculate what to roughly expect for your ship. But that's really only, to some degree, it's theoretical. It is accurate, but you can't directly translate that to what speed you should be going at. You can get close. You can get a close approximate, probably within 10 or 20% of what value you would want to set. But until the developers allow us to set the speed exactly, instead of what actually happens, which, I guess we're not gonna see it until this is deeper. In practice, it goes up and down all the time, so it's not that simple. But anyway, you want to do thruster stacking, throttling. Sorry, not stacking. Well, you want to do both. You stay at the speed so that the belts are still saturated but not oversaturated. The cryogenic plants can produce at max capacity. And at the end, what happens is that at this point, you're kind of going to be running out of Promethium chunks. So you want to kill more so that you, again, oversaturate the belts as much as possible before before they're not dense enough to, before like you just don't get enough to keep them saturated. So that's why you have this little cut thingy there. Next thing is about the thruster stacking. Because the ship is so wide, I have 2 thruster stacks. I decided to stay on 4 because that's the max that you can do with 1 pipeline, no pumps, no special things like. I have 2, one on the left, one on the right. There is a nice benefit to having one on the left, one on the right. But yeah, this is it. This is basically it. Oops, for the fuel production, which comes here, and that's it. Yeah, and you have the same idea over here. Now for the thruster stacking, I made them be off like that so that I can cut through here and gain some more speed by deleting stuff over here. And you can do the same thing over here and over here. Now, I don't know if this is worth it because, again, like I said, there is a UPS cost to making the bounding box bigger. And you can see this could have been over here at the cost of some speed. Is this difference worth it? I don't know. It could be that it's not. Because this difference does cost UPS, but you gain speed. It's probably not worth it, but I just wanted to also do it just for the fun and to show how you can do this. Now, second thing, and it's really nice if you're gonna have two sets of thruster stacking, one left and one right. It's really helpful to put the connecting platform between them close to the edge. Not only can you easily like add laser turrets this way without taking up extra space, like if I wanted some more here, like I can't even place any here. I need to add more space platform, which reduces the speed. But here, there's a very natural way to add the laser turrets. And the other benefit is, if you do it at the edge, there's also, you can have either 0, 1, or 2 thrusters that don't need you to loop around some pipeline over here. So that's another way to gain some more speed for your width. and it only takes 2 tiles, the minimum possible for these to pass on. Another good thing about doing it this way is that all of these chunks, they will crash into these things over here, whereas if this thing was like over here, then they would keep flying like that and they would crash later, so you save some UPS as well. Okay. Another thing that helped me a lot is, you'll notice I'm doing whatever the fuck you call this, green belt plus blue belt, and sometimes I even have red belt. So this helps me have, as you see, the asteroids on different belts, which means they only take up 1 tile to move them along. And with some fancy belt bullshit and spaghetti, the main issue is really the, you know, when you have this many thrusters. I mean, this is technically the max that you can have off of 1 pipeline without pumps, which is, I'm pretty sure you literally cannot do more, which is 316 thrusters. So that takes, I think, roughly 90,000 fluid per second of each of the fluids. So yeah, that's a lot of ice asteroids, and yeah, see how the speed goes up and down? This is what I mean. So you can't just target a specific speed and be certain that you're gonna stay there or something like that. Anyway, what else is there to talk about? There's more to talk about, but let me also talk about the hub here. As you see, there's a lot of degenerate stuff happening here, a lot of cursed solutions. The basic idea, which I will talk about now, is that for every inserter that you want to direct insert, and why do you want to do that? Maybe it's not obvious. It's because if they just pick up from a belt, they can do 80 items per second. But if you do it this way, these can do 120 per second. So you get up to 50% more throughput by doing this. So the way to do it is, it's relatively simple. I'll get into the details of why it works this way, but it doesn't work any other way later. But you want 2 inserters picking up from the belt for each one direct inserting. So you see I have 1 here and 2 here. Here I have 3. Here are another 3 because I need to transfer it. So here I have 6. And it's the same idea here, but here it's more complex, and I need to do some bullshit here, the recipe change. But again, I have 4 here, direct inserting, so I have 8 here, 4 and 4, outputting onto a belt. But yeah, I'll talk about these details more later, because it's too much detail to get into right now. Okay. Another limitation that my ship has, that I'm not even sure what the best solution is, because I'm not really a belt expert. I probably know more than most people, but there are people who know more about belts. Promethium ships, unlike other stuff, are really unique in a lot of ways. And one of those ways is that you don't get consistent throughput out of the collectors. Sometimes these may get way too many chunks and get full, and sometimes they may get nothing for like a couple seconds. So it becomes a bit of a nightmare how to do the belt balancing and whatever the belt throughput, so kind of what you want ideally. Let's start from the theory. In theory, you want to feed all of the cryogenic plants equally. Now, because I do fancy bullshit with my biter eggs, it ends up that for me specifically, ideally, I would prioritize these ones first to be fed with chunks, then these ones, kind of going from left to right here, and vice versa here, from right to left. The reason is because this is the last stop for the biter eggs. So, and if I keep running it, what you'll see is that it's gonna still take a while, but this one we run out of biter eggs first, then these ones, then these ones. So these are the ones that run out of biter eggs last, and they actually don't really literally run out. They actually spawn and get killed. But they're actually the last ones in terms of priority of the chunks. And also with my current solution, for example, these collectors, they are put over here. Okay, well this goes through here. Right. Here it splits off in a couple of ways, but regardless, one way goes through here. So by definition, anything that goes from here will be split among these three. And you know, without going into the super detail, none of these three belts go over here. So when these run out of biter eggs and they don't craft anymore, they will fill up with Promethium chunks, their belts, and then this will fill up, and then this will stop outputting. So, you know, maybe you want the chunks to have equal chance to go to all of them, or maybe you want to prioritize some over the others if you're outputting eggs and you're not doing it in a perfect fashion. And I don't know if there is a perfect fashion, because by definition the ones that are further away are the ones that are going to be more likely to have issues with biter egg spawning. But what you definitely ideally want is you never want one of these to be full, and yeah, you want them to be able to go from any of these collectors to any of the cryogenic plants, which I have not done here, right? Let me be clear, I have not done here. So in my previous ship I did have actual balancers, and then I did this thing, which I think is called a waterfall technically, or whatever. I'm not sure what the perfect solution is. Okay, this is the last thing that I would say is a thing that can be improved with my spaceship. What is the best way to balance this so that, yeah, these work like you would want them to? It seems like a universal balancer would work, but that's way too big. And the other problem is, yeah, these are, I'm using 18 belts here. There's no good way to do an 18 belt balancer. 16 would be better, so yeah, you run into, balancing is a bitch, let's put it that way. But if someone can prove to me what's the best way to do it, at least in principle, and hopefully without a universal balancer, because yeah, that would be a really big blueprint. Yeah, do let me know. Okay, so we talked about this. It's basically to get more throughput. I have some balances here. Again, this may not be ideal. Okay, what else is there left to talk about? The conditions here are really simple, by the way, but I guess I'll talk about that later. Okay. I think that's, yeah, by the way, this isn't going to be just Promethium ship, it's also going to have the biter egg system, and talk a bit about quantum processors as well, because you can't do one without the other. Okay, so regarding quantum, regarding the biters, because I think that's what I need to talk about next. This is my biter egg solution, and I think it's also possibly one of the best, if not the best out there. By the way, this is one cool thing about both my Promethium ships and my biter egg, design. You can use either, or you can use my biter egg design with your own Promethium ship, as long as it's not a chunk holder. It's actually, you pick up biter eggs and you go to the Promethium field. Although it may be possible to change it so that it can be used with chunk holders as well. I can talk about that later. It's also a detail that I need to talk about later. Yeah. And you can also use my Promethium ships with your own biter egg system. Okay, the bidirect system, it's obviously going to be a lot simpler to talk about than the Promethium ship, so maybe I'll go into it in full detail. It's probably going to take like 20-30 minutes. So, and again, we can't talk about this without talking about some stuff that have to do with UPS. Bidar spawners always take up UPS. They can never be disabled. And an important detail which some people may not know, and then I'll need to go to a different one. They can stack up to 100 eggs, but they still keep working. They still need Bioflux. So even if their output is full, they just make more which get deleted, I guess. They just don't appear whatsoever. So they are classified as assembly machines, so they always take up update time. So minimizing how many of them you have is ideal. That's the first thing. Second thing, which is important, rocket silos also take up UPS. And it's actually easiest if I do this in an empty editor. This will be really fast because there's not much to do. So let me just put a rocket silo down. You see I have literally nothing in orbit, nothing here, nothing is happening. I actually wonder if I remove this, if it will still take up UPS. I may need to add a few more. Let's just add a bunch. Okay. So even if they're unpowered, it looks like they take up update time. So literally just having rocket silos takes update time. Okay, but that's not the whole picture. Okay. Let me make a platform. Here's my beautiful platform. You can see it says 0.0, whatever, 6 microseconds, right? Now, where did it go? You know, whatever, 7 microseconds, 6. If I delete these rocket silos, it went down to 2. So, so rocket silos, even if they're empty, even if they're doing nothing, even if they're on, actually, I wonder if, yeah, even unpowered, yeah, they still affect space platforms. So, on Nauvis, you're probably gonna have a bunch of space platforms, and trust me, if you go through all of my videos, you're probably gonna be convinced to have, with why you're probably gonna have like 10 or even more of them idling over Nauvis. So let's say I have 10 right now, and let's speed it up so that this crap gets out of the way. Thank you. So now space platforms is 30, and rocket silo is 14. And if I deleted the rocket silos, it's down to 9. So there is an update time cost to rocket silos just for existing, literally just for existing, plus extra update time when they're actually doing something. Which means on Novice, you're gonna have a bunch of space platforms. Just take my word for it, even if you think, no, I don't, my platforms are always moving around, so I don't want them idling over Novice. I'm gonna tell you now that's not a UPS ideal way to do things. If you want to do them for other reasons, because you enjoy that or whatever, that's fine. But for UPS reasons, it's not the ideal way. So because of this, you want to minimize how many rocket cells you have, and ideally you want them to be actually being used as much as possible. So if you do that, you're maximizing their potential in terms of their UPS cost, and addressing also to some degree the issue that you will have on Novice if you want to do things ideally, which is that you're going to have, like, how many do I have idling on Novice now? I have 6, 7, 8, I guess. Yeah, 7 now. But yeah, you'll probably have 5 to 10, maybe even more idling over Novice at any point in time if you do things ideally. So minimizing how many rocket silos using, that's also a good thing. Okay, so first issue with spider spawners. And this is kind of separate of the rest of the system, but it's easier to talk about. It's Bioflux. If you look at my agricultural science video, I guess I'll quickly go on Gleba, but basically, for the science, the fruits first go into the science, like that. They get prioritized to go into the science, but then if there's any excess, it moves on, and basically good zones a belt, this belt, and this belt, which along with some supplemental fruits go onto kind of the base that makes mainly rocket parts, but also Bioflux. But the first priority in terms of the only one that you need to have decent freshness. It doesn't need to be as perfect freshness as possible, but the higher the better. And you'll see in a minute why. And I get Bioflux at 95% freshness, which is fine. Actually, probably anything over like 70, 80 is fine. But you do want this to be fresh. For the rest, it really doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't matter, you know, the Bioflux that this consumes doesn't matter if it is at 1% freshness or 90%, right? Okay. And the reason is exactly because of biters. So what I have here for a system is, if I go all the way in the back, you'll see I am reading this belt. And basically, if the Bioflux on the belt is above a threshold, then I recycle it. Sends a signal to this guy and recycles it. Now, I have specifically set this to be this number. This is the threshold, and this number actually happens to be the maximum Bioflux possible on this belt, which is, you know, 23,000 or whatever. And the way to figure out is to actually let this belt get full and then read the combinator and see how much it is. So, what does this do? Well, let me take you. I'll tell you right now what it does. I never have to deal with spoilage. And this is the last biospawner that takes in Bioflux, and you see it still has an hour left. And yeah, like you saw, this system has been running for 800 hours. Same thing with with Gleba. I've done the same thing in Gleba. I don't deal with spoilage except, I mean, the only real place I deal with spoilage is in here, basically. But the science, all of this doesn't deal with spoilage whatsoever. I do get some spoilage on Nauvis for the agricultural science packs, which I'll, again, talk about. I've talked about in my Gleba video. I may talk about in my last video about the science hub. But yeah, I don't have to deal with spoilage. What's the good thing about not having to deal with spoilage? I could even delete these, by the way. I don't know why I keep them. I've actually thought about this before and I forgot to do it. If you can't get spoilage, either this guy needs to remove it really fast, or you need to have inserters all over the place picking up spoilage. At these inserters, there's no good way to implement them so that you guarantee that the biospawners will always be fed. And why do you want the biospawners to always be fed? Because it keeps things consistent. That's the main reason. However, the second reason you don't want to have all of these inserters and all that crap and have you deal with spoilage is, again, UPS. So if I go to active state, you'll see all of these guys are basically inactive all the time. Basically. These guys activate every time one of these crafts finishes, and this is why I should probably delete them. I've just been lazy and not done it, but I could easily do it. They don't take up much UPS because it's like one craft every 4 seconds, so it's kind of whatever. But yeah, if you don't have to deal with spoilage, you know your system never gets spoilage, that means that it's better for UPS and you don't need as much, you have more freedom in designing it, right? Because if I have to deal with spoilage, then okay, suddenly my blueprint becomes bigger, right? Or I need to use undergrounds, and then you know, what do I do with it? Do I put it in, you know, do I put it in active provider chests? In purple chest? I don't know what I do with it. Okay. By the way, another small detail, it's generally better when you don't have consistent issues like that, it's better to use recycling over heat towers, although I don't even know if you can throw these in heat towers. I don't remember. But anyway, because heat towers always have a UPS, they're kind of like rocket silos, they always have an update time cost, whereas recyclers don't always, only when they're active. So they're usually preferable for these cases, and another case like that is, yeah, over here on my labs, I have these which I need to change to recyclers, which supposedly deal with spoilers from agricultural, which can happen because once you put it in there in the lab, you can't avoid that. Okay, so how do I guarantee it? First of all, I make sure that the freshness on gleba is decent, and but most importantly, consistent. Like if it's sometimes 90% and sometimes 10%, that's terrible. It's better to have it always at 70% or higher rather than most of the time 90% and sometimes 10%. You want it to be consistently at least 70%. You saw I easily got it to 95% without doing too much. But the important thing is consistency. Yeah. Okay, so what do I do here? I also send one extra signal, which is if I have too little bioflux, less than 22,000, then I send a speed signal. Okay. So, what is that speed signal? I have 1,000 biospawners, exactly, in this system. And can I actually do this? Yeah, I actually can. I guess I'll do it for all of them then. Hopefully this works. I don't think. Oh, yeah, that didn't work properly. Let me try again. Try from here to here. Okay, there we go. So these biospawners need 16.6 bioflux per second. Now here's the problem. If I feed this belt exactly 16.6 per second, I don't feel confident with clocking these inserters. Because by the time the bioflux goes all the way from here, all the way to the back, maybe this one has died. Right? It is something I guess that I could test with, but if you don't clock them and you feed the belt exactly 16.66 per second, you will not have back pressure. You can't realistically have back pressure. So that's the reason I feed it more than that, so that I guarantee back pressure here, so that the inserters can easily pick up as much as they want, and it's available to them. Now, I could, actually, that's a good idea. I could actually try to, I guess that's one of my hesitancies, and I guess, yeah, that's one thing that maybe is better and people can figure it out. I am hesitant, anything to do with freshness, to actually clock it. Especially by the spawners, they're the scariest one of all. So I haven't clocked these inserters. It's possible that that could work, but anyway, the way I have addressed it so that they always have back pressure to pick up from is that I've actually fit this belt with 20 bioflux per second, and if you notice, it's not stacked. And this happens from all the way over here. It's this guy outputting, has a little clock here that makes him do 20 per second. And this is the speed up signal, which was sent by the radar. And when it gets sent here, it also activates this one. So if I don't have enough bioflux, they will output more bioflux to make sure that the system is fed quickly, so that all of them get fed. And I still have you know, rocket turrets with capsule bottle rockets just in case. But it's just to set up the system faster and make sure that you don't run into issues when you set it up. In theory, I could delete these as well at this point. Like, once the system is working, another Gleba is working. The only realistic chance of it breaking is when I change the hub again. Anyway, so that's kind of it for the Bioflux. Oh, the main reason I don't stack the belts with stacked Bioflux is because then it will actually spoil, right? Because I have 4 times as much Bioflux, so by the time it keeps moving through the belt, it goes all the way at the end. Yeah, you're not gonna get 1 hour here. You saw when I pick it up, it's at 95% fresh. Now it's at 50. It's gonna spoil. And the belt is made so that it's as short as possible, and maybe someone can find a design that makes it even shorter. And I will tell you now, there's literally no point in, because that's what I did initially, having a splitter here, and then having a separate belt. And let's say one belt feeds all of these, and the other belt feeds all of these. That makes no difference whatsoever. It just overcomplicates things. Ideally, what you want, although if you can't design it, what you want is the total. I guess that's one way to think about it. You want the total belt length in whatever you do to be as low as possible. The smaller it is, the higher the freshness will be. That's the way to think about it. Okay, that's it for the Bioflux system. And as you saw, the inserters are, I mean, in general, my inserters are generally inactive, but I guess that's something to think about. What about clocking them? Okay, let's go into the actual biter egg system. So I already talked about how much of a UPS cost it is to have many rocket silos and many biter spawners. So naively, but understandably, what people may first think of is, well, Promethium ships take up a lot of UPS, so I want them to come back to Nauvis, pick up the eggs instantly, and leave again. Now, if I did that with my ships, I would need 20 times as much as you see here, because these do 20 launches per ship. So instead of 1,000 biter spawners, I would need 20,000 biter spawners. Instead of 100 rocket silos, I would need 1,000. So the key here is that, okay, if these are idling over Nauvis, the real cost of them idling over Nauvis is what is their idle, you know, when they're idle over Nauvis, what's their update time? And this is what I've tried to really minimize. You can see like almost everything is disabled. For example, how come these ones aren't disabled? I thought I disabled them. Maybe I disabled these ones. Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, maybe I think collectors don't really disable anyway or something like that. I don't remember. I thought I disabled the collectors too. But regardless, doing stuff so that when your ship idles on Novice to require as little of an update time as possible, that's important. So that the trade-off actually makes 100% sense. Because again, it's not about just SPM. It's about SPM divided by update time. Average update time over the whole round trip. So if the update time of the spaceship over Novice is basically 0, then it doesn't matter, right? If you want to increase SPM more, you just get another ship. That's it. Now, of course, if you want to increase your SP, if you have 1,000 times per second and you want to have 1,010, then okay, that's different. But yeah, realistically speaking, you just get another spaceship. So, and a couple things I will mention that I did for improving the idle time. It was clocking these inserters so that they're active only, I think, once every 100 ticks, because over Novice, these are kind of empty anyway. They don't pick up that much. So clocking them is good, because otherwise they stay active all the time. And now they left Novice, so that stopped. But anyway. And the other one is all of these. All of the everything that can output a fluid. If this is maxed out on fluid, which is at 3000, then it doesn't matter actually. Anything that outputs fluid, if the reason it has stopped is not... there are some recipes which I think do both an item and a fluid, and then if they're stuck because the item output is full, then they may become disabled or whatever, inactive. But regardless, anyway, these ones don't become inactive ever completely. So again, I use this signal is used to thruster throttle, but I also use it on nauvis to set them also to be active only once every 100 ticks. So you also want to do this on a couple of other things. I think maybe these ones, although I don't think so. What was it? Maybe these ones, because these ones also are fluids. I don't remember. There were a couple of other buildings, but it doesn't matter that much. Mainly it's the ones that do thrusters, fluid. So, by doing those things, the actual idle time of one of my Promethium ships is will show up at their space platforms. As you know, it was 30 microseconds in the editor, which is a lot less than than the update time of having 20 times the amount of birespawners and rocket silos, or even 10 times, or even 5 times. That's good. That would be way more. I could actually even remove some of these. I think I could remove 20 of the rocket silos out of the 100, and it would still be fine. It would probably be better, but whatever. I mean, 100 is a round number, so it's fine. Okay. So that's the design philosophy, why this is optimal for UPS. Now, into the specifics for the UPS cost. We need to go further and understand the system. So, this is... actually, I'll first talk about the system itself. So, I have 10 birespawners exactly, legendary quality. When they're legendary quality, they craft 5 eggs every 4 seconds. And they stack up to 100. And do I have a ship coming in? I actually have one coming in pretty soon. So I have a clock here that counts to 8 seconds. And then I send every 8 seconds, which means I have crafted 10 eggs, I send a signal which goes onto stack inserters and sets their filter. So what I will do is, when these are full, this will output 16 at a time. But once these empty, and you know, they will still be clocked to activate every 8 seconds, so they will output 10 at a time. Now, that's the one cool thing about the stack inserters, which most people probably know if you're watching this video, is if you're doing them based on filters, then they don't need to go all the way to 16 for them to output. And you can see now they're outputting 16 at a time. Now, why not use bulk inserters? Well, first of all, if something works with stack inserters, why use bulk inserters? Because you do less swings with stack inserters. But with bulk inserters, the problem was, you can see now I cannot output, right? Because, you know, while the rocket is launching, for roughly 15 seconds, you cannot input anymore. So the problem was, in between the launches, I would get too many eggs in here, so the bulk inserters could never empty them. Like, they just wouldn't empty the captive biospawners, which was a waste. Stack inserters can actually empty them. And roughly, so again, I said I do 20 launches per Promethium ship. So when they get to roughly launch 10, these will empty. After they empty, which is now gonna take like 5 minutes or something, what will end up happening is that these will gather a few eggs. You know, they will empty after one launch. Let's say I've done launch 15 out of 20. Once the launch starts, this will be empty. Then they will get some more eggs. Let's say, like, I don't know exactly how many. Let's say 20 eggs. So then these inserters will swing twice and add roughly 300 eggs. I don't remember exactly. We'll see eventually. But then the last 2 slots of each launch will be perfect freshness. So each of them will do 10 eggs. So you get exactly 1 stack of perfect freshness, and then another 1 stack of perfect freshness. Actually, I do remember, yeah. On their first swing, they will do 16 each, so 160. On their second, they will do 14 each, so 140. So it gets the first 3 stacks like that, and then the next 2 will have perfect freshness when they swing, and perfect freshness again when they swing. So that means on the very last launch, on the 20th launch, all of these inserters will swing. They will add the last batch at perfect freshness as much as possible, and then exactly then the rockets will launch. Which means I get 100 eggs times 100 launches, so 10,000 eggs at perfect freshness, which arrive on my ship. Those are the last eggs that arrive on the ship, and then the ship leaves. So that's one really cool part of the system. I mean, everything is real cool. I can use legendary spawners, which minimize UPS. It uses pure rocket silos, which minimize UPS. It uses Bioflux in a really good way, which minimizes UPS for spoilage and keeps it consistent. But another cool thing about using the stack inserters is that not only will they empty the biospawners eventually, you also get perfect freshness at the end. And you don't need to do anything special about it, it just automatically happens. So that's one part of the equation. That's the main thing for the inserting. There's also another thing which just counts, and once it goes above... yeah, I think this is when I'm done inserting, when I don't want to keep inserting, it starts counting, and once I go above, what is it, like a minute or something, then it activates this guy, just in case there are some biter eggs in here, and they will get burned. And actually I should delete these because they're not needed, they're literally not needed. This never actually activates on my system. I'll keep this in my blueprint, which I will share. So in case they are needed for you, or you want them for, you probably want to start with them, and then if you're satisfied that you don't need them, you can delete them afterwards and save some UPS, because yeah, hit towers take up quite a bit at all times. Alright, so that's it for the inserters over here. There's also inserters that add the rocket parts, but that's not that interesting. Let's see also what launch are we at now. We're about to get to the halfway point. Yeah, you see they're already like kind of emptying. We can see what actually happens in practice, which I think is already going to happen. They'll insert... actually, no. So there's insert 100 and 160. Now they're going to do 140 is my guess. Yep, and now they're going to do perfect freshness 100, exactly. It's going to have 29 minutes, 24 seconds. Oh no, never mind. Why is it? Oh, all right, yeah. It reverses it when it launches, so it was this one. And from now on, all of the launches are gonna be basically the same. Yeah, 160, and now it's gonna be 140. And then they're gonna swing. Come on, 140. There you go. And now they're gonna swing, and it's gonna be perfect freshness, which I think will go here. Well, I could be wrong. There you go, 100% freshness. And then another one, which I don't know where the hell it's gonna go, because it's gonna launch instantly at the same time. I guess it goes at the start, yeah. Okay, now onto the actual system. How does it decide when to launch eggs? This is the main combinator, and it checks for 4 things. The 4th one is the easiest, because it's just a manual override. So when you get this blueprint, unless I've made a mistake, this should be on. When it's on, it just stops the system completely, right? So when you've built everything and you're ready to switch on the system, obviously the Bioflux will flow anyway. Yeah, this is for actually inserting the eggs. When you have your Promethium seed, blah, 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 you will switch this off. Okay, the second thing is whether I have a request from orbit, which comes from read all beta request. I obviously only need this on one of them. I don't need it on every single rocket silo. Passes on to this, and then passes on with the red, well, sorry, with the green wire over here. And that's all it is. It's just the request. So is there a request for biter eggs? And then there's only, there's two more things. I will talk about this last, but this one is basically, can I drop the Promethium signs over here on the landing pad? So for here, I'm checking if I have less than 850,000 on the landing pad. In theory. So how do I do that? I read the logistic network contents out of a roboport. Now, in theory, you may be naive and pass it on directly, right? Or just pass only the signal for the Promethium size packs because you don't want to pass a million signals. But anyway. So let's say you do that, okay? If you do that, let's imagine I have 800,000 Promethium size packs. So the ship comes, arrives here, and is like, okay, I have 800,000. First of all, why do you want to do that? Because you want to make sure that you have enough space for all the science packs that one of them brings in. So this one is about to leave. It has almost 3 million science packs. You want to make sure that you have the space on Nauvis to drop it all. Because you don't want to get into the situation where, oh my god, I can't drop it, now I can't take on the eggs, what the hell is happening? And then your ship either stalls over Nauvis and then the eggs spawn and they destroy it, or, you know, whatever might happen. So in principle here, what I've done is, I bring in 3 million at a time. I assume that on the landing pad, I can receive up to 4 million Promethium science packs. So, in theory, I would set this to under 1 million, because if I have less than 1 million, then I can take another 3. I've set it a bit lower just to be safe, you know, just in case. But here's what the problem that can happen. Imagine you have 800,000 on the science hub, and you drop the entire 3 million, and let's say you consumed some as well, but yeah, this number suddenly from 800,000 goes up to 3.7 million, or whatever, 3.8 million. So suddenly this check is not true anymore. So it's like, okay, well, shit, now I can't input eggs anymore because it assumes I don't have the space, but I actually do have the space on the spaceship. So you might think, well, the obvious solution, if you've done a similar kind of thing in Factorio before, is to have do a latch. That's like, or a memory cell or something that's like, okay, when the ship arrives, check, do I have the space for it? And then keep inserting eggs until I'm done with that one spaceship, and then check again when the next spaceship comes. But keep inserting, like, do this check only once when the other 3 are true. Once the other 3 are true, do this check once. If it's true, then consider it still true for the entire duration until I'm done inserting from one spaceship. So here's what I've done, something that is really simple instead. So this outputs the Promethium science pack over here, how many I have. Right, so when there is no spaceship here, I will actually get how many science packs I have on the hub. Then this will become true, but then this stays true as long as I'm inserting the eggs. So this stays true, which goes here, which means that this is true, so this stops the Promethium science pack signal. So this stays 0 at all times, and thankfully I want to check for under a positive number, because if I want to check above a positive number, then this wouldn't work. Oh yeah, that's a simple way that fixes this issue which happened in my previous spaceship, but whatever. Okay, so then we come into the last part, which is this part over here. So here I get the request for the Biterex. Now, if I have one spaceship in orbit, and then I do modulo 1 million. Why 1 million? Because I'm requesting 1 million Biterex. If I have one ship in orbit, this is gonna give me how many that ship is still requesting. With one caveat, when it's exactly 1 million or when it's 0, there is no way to, decide between the two. Am I actually requesting 0 eggs or am I requesting 1 million eggs? So there's no way to distinguish between the two. If I had two ships in orbit, again, it would do the same. It would only give me how much is the first ship, the ship that I'm actually launching the eggs towards, actually requesting. And I guess at this point I need to... This might make sense to some of you who may have been still stuck in the era of bathroom keys and token systems and things like that. And by the way, why this may not work for chunk haulers. Let's imagine I have two ships arriving on Nauvis, one after the other. Let's say ship 1 arrives, and then one tick later ship 2 arrives. They're both gonna request 1 million eggs. The way the rocket silos work, when they're launching, when there's two ships, two space platforms requesting having the same request, it's a first in, first out. They're gonna send to the first ship that arrived until the request is met. And let me be very specific about when the request is considered that it has been met. It is considered met. I mean, it kind of sucks because now I don't have anything in orbit. I guess I can go to one of these because it's the same thing. So this will arrive to Gleba. It is considered met when the satisfaction, not when the stuff actually lands on the ship, but when it has been launched by rocket silos. It's actually the sum. How many do I have on the ship, plus how many have been launched towards the ship. So even if that request, you see now there's they're gathering. Boom. Now that request is done. Now this request is done. If another ship arrives now, and I mean this isn't gonna work on this thing. I guess I'm gonna have to wait for. Yeah, because everything arrives at the same time. Let's imagine. Yeah, this kind of sucks because I can't explain well. But okay, these ships, the Promethium ships, they take in 50,000 at a time. When they have 950,000, when they have 950,000, and then I launch the last 50,000, but it just launched from the rocket silos. If some other ship arrives on Nauvis, okay, after that point, but then I go to the first ship and I delete some of the Biterex somehow. So suddenly again this ship that was already on Nauvis, actually its request isn't met. They will actually fully prioritize the ship that arrived rather than this one that I just manually deleted some eggs. I don't know if this example made sense, but that's the important thing to understand. Once the logistic request is met, even for one tick, they will move on to the next ship. And this gives you an idea why it might not work with chunk haulers, because with chunk haulers, you may bring the ship to Nauvis. You may only be requesting 50,000 eggs, but you get 50,000 eggs from every launch. So if you have two chunk haulers, it will keep alternating between the two or something, but you're also removing the eggs manually at all times. So if on your chunk haulers you have a big request here that is never met until the chunk hauler is done. So let's say you have a chunk hauler that requests 200,000 eggs, and you get 50,000 eggs every minute, let's say. If you can consume those 50,000 eggs faster than that, if you can consume on the ship 60,000 eggs per minute, then you won't have an issue, because you will never meet that request until you're done until the ship is done. So in that case, you cannot. It would still be first in, first out. So this system would work in that case with chunk holders. But if you're requesting a very small amount and it is met all the time, then yeah, you will need something like a bathroom key. But for normal Promethium ships, you really don't need it. They will prioritize one after the other. So this is why, even if you have 2 ships in orbit, this will be 1.9 million, would be 1.9 million at the time, right now, but this will give me 900,000. Then this just delays the signal by 1 tick, and then I'm checking, let's see again, if the signal went from 50,000 basically to 0, which means I just finished with 1 ship. That's what this R signal basically resets a clock. Once a ship has just finished getting all the eggs. So this will start a clock, and then the clock keeps going until it goes above a threshold. And that's the last part. So basically what this does is once one ship is done collecting eggs, then the system will not output eggs anymore until, you know, whatever, 14, oh, it's over here, until 14,000 ticks have passed. And why do I do that? It's to space the ships out over time, because it's not ideal to have, you know, let's say I had 3 ships, or all these 3 ships over Nauvis, and they're just waiting. They would all, let's take it to the extreme. Let's say they all take all the eggs instantly, and then they all together go to the solar system edge. You know, the average update time might be the same or something. Let's say the average update time or UPS is the same, but it would be a lot more spiky. So you would have higher highs and lower lows, because they're either all idling on Novice or they're all doing something. So if you space them out, it helps with keeping UPS more consistent. And you can even see this easily on the graph here. So if I go to science, you see how consistent it is. Whereas if they all went together, you would have like a big spike and then nothing. Whereas here it's each ship on its own, but there's always some of them. This obviously doesn't go down to 0, so there's always some. There's always 2 at any moment collecting. So one reason is to keep the update time, the UPS, more consistent and less, yeah, with less variance. The second reason is you can actually, if you change this around, you can target a specific science per second. So right now I have it right at the limit where they're as spread out as possible while never waiting. They will never come to Novice and wait to pick up. They've been naturally spaced out based on how long the round trip time is and this number. But I can set this even higher, because let's say I finish my Megabase and I found out that actually I don't have the UPS to support these 3 ships going non-stop. Well, I can easily, if I increase this to, let's say, 25,000 or something, then I will get less science per second, but I will gain update time or UPS, you know, just because I have too much UPS. So you can, so through some maths, you can actually target a specific SPM with that, you know, if it's below the maximum that your ships can do possible. So that's the bidirect system. There's one more thing to talk about, but that's it for this system. I guess I'll talk about the last part of it as well. So I will expand upon this more on my video about the Novice hub or landing pad or whatever. I've said this probably, if you watch my videos, I may have said it in other videos, but the more items you have on the landing pad, the more it costs to take stuff out of it, whether it's with bots or with inserters. Which means that you want to keep it as small as possible, as empty as possible, and you can see I'm only using 1,300 slots right now out of the 62,000 maximum. You can go this up to 65,000. It used to be that empty slots also took up UPS every time you had to alter the inventory, but now they don't. Just to give you an idea of how it works and why it takes up a lot of update time, it's because if I'm trying to, let's say, take some calcite, what actually ends up happening is that it checks from the end backwards. Is this calcite? Is this calcite? Is this calcite? Is this calcite? It checks one by one every slot, whether it's calcite. And so it's gonna do like basically like 1,000 checks every time before it finds the calcite and then takes it out. So that's why the fewer items you have, the better your update time is going to be. Which is a bit of a problem with Promethium, because how do you drop slowly from a spaceship? Well, you can't control what the fuck the spaceship will do to some degree, but you can control the request here. So it's fairly simple, and I had to figure out the timing on this, but I am once again getting the, where is it, from here I guess, the orbital request, which tells me whether there's a spaceship in orbit with Promethium. So same thing here, I do modulo, so that tells me how many eggs I'm still requesting, because I know roughly how much time I have based on that. And then let's see, I don't remember, yeah, so this gives me the input here. This green wire that goes as input here is how much Promethium science packs I have in the hub right now. I add 85k to it, which I had to, you can find this either empirically, like test a number, see if it works fine or not. But the basic idea is that when a ship arrives on Nauvis and it drops cargo pods, it takes 20 seconds for those cargo pods to land and actually appear here. So based on how much time they stay over Nauvis, which is roughly, I think, 800 seconds, and the fact that I have 3 million signs to drop, and it takes, and basically it's gonna drop 85k every 20 seconds. Rather than I can drop however much every 20 seconds, 85k turned out to work well. So you can kind of get an estimate by doing this math that I roughly explained now, which gave me a number close to this, but yeah, I had to adjust it a little bit. But the last part is if I have less, if the number of eggs I'm requesting is less than 70k, which means I'm about to, I'm about to be done with the eggs, then I'm gonna request the full 4 million. That's basically it. And I don't know if do I have one right now? Yeah, which is actually close to being done, so we can also watch it a little bit. So you see it has 50k, but it's requesting like a bit more, and the request is changing automatically. So now a bunch of it might arrive. Yeah, so the request is increasing accordingly. Increasing or decreasing accordingly. Yeah, now a bunch of it arrived. And when it gets close to done, it's gonna request everything that is left over. And so we can also see here, we can monitor how many Promethium science packs we have. But basically, this makes it so that I drop it slowly, which also helps the bots, because as they remove it, there is less items to check through. Actually, it doesn't matter for the Promethium, but it matters for the other sciences. The more Promethium science, because Promethium science packs are the last thing on the hub, it doesn't matter. But the more I have of it, the more expensive it is to take out the other sciences out of the hub. But yeah, I don't remember exactly when. I think when the satisfaction is 900k and they launch the next one. So when it says 900,000 and on the way 50,000, that's when it's gonna launch the whatever is remaining, if I remember correctly. And we can wait a little bit here to see this. And I think that's all the entirety of the biter egg system. I guess the last things to talk about is the stuff here. So I'm requesting 1 million eggs. So kind of simple. If I've basically gotten all of them, and I've gotten rid of all of the Promethium science packs, then leave. Or if I have any biter eggs and the ship has been inactive for too long, then also leave. So the way this inactivity works is that and by the way, I think this will soon arrive. The way this inactivity works is that the rocket launches happen at 40 seconds maximum. So if something has gone wrong, eventually this will hit the limit and then it will leave and go with the eggs that it has so that the ship doesn't get destroyed. Now, yeah, see? Now this activated and it dropped everything. So at 900 plus 50, it drops the rest. And now that I dropped the rest, you see the inactivity isn't blinking all the time. So this is also why, normally, if I didn't do these small drops of Promethium science packs, this would actually go to 40, which actually it will do now. And then it will reset for the next launch. Yeah, like right now, it's gonna reset. Boom. But, so yeah, in the worst case scenario, it doesn't matter because it's gonna receive, let's say it receives 50,000 eggs, only the first launch. It's gonna do this kind of blinking while it's dropping the Promethium science. But then when it ends, then it's gonna count fully. So, I don't know if that makes sense, but yeah, there is no risk from the biter eggs with this system. Now in practice, the ship doesn't need this, but again, if you are scared, you want to test your own ship, this can help. Some other minor thing to talk about is if your ship is using the circuitry anyway, so if you're reading content anyway, for some other reason, for example here, actually I don't know if I need it for some other reason, but if you are, it's definitely better to do circuit for the item that you want to check rather than doing item count. UPS wise, it doesn't make a huge difference, but it is better. Oh, one thing I didn't mention is when it comes to the ships being first in, first out in terms of where the rocket launches go, if you mess with anything in the ship over here, if you change something, if you pause it, if you change its name, if you change anything, then that system can get messed up. Okay, so yeah, set up your ships, let them go, and then just don't. If you're gonna change anything, ideally don't do it while they're over nauvis, because that can mess up the biter eggs. If they're not on nauvis, then it's fine. You can mess around with them. But yeah, that's generally true for the first in, first out system. I don't remember exactly what causes it to change, but definitely messing around with some of these things can cause it to change. Okay, so the biter egg system is done. I don't think there's anything else to talk about. So I guess let's talk about the orders. It goes by Gleba briefly. This is actually, it says 0, but it's not actually 0. I guess I'll mess around with it. You can actually set this to ticks by doing something like this. So this will set it to 5 ticks. I don't remember what I have set it to because it will round down what it shows, but it is actually 10 ticks. So I have it something like that. And yeah, that makes it stay a bit less time on Gleba, which makes it not lose a bunch of speed unnecessarily. And it is just in case I want to drop some biter eggs on Gleba. Now the starter plan, again, very simple condition, and this you kind of need to optimize it and find out for your own ship what is the best number. And they're very simple like Kilo, just go and pick up the quantum processors. Now, let me talk about this part a bit because that's part of the design philosophy that I haven't talked about. This also has to do with, okay, so you fly into the starter planet. When do you want to turn back? Because if I look at biter egg usage, it goes up. then kind of stays flat and then goes down. If you don't fly that long, then you won't be at peak production as much, right? If I flew in for 500 seconds, it probably wouldn't even get to this point. It would go like this and then go back down. If you fly for too long, then you go into this phase, then you are here, and then it will abruptly cut. So you'll be able to do more eggs, but then you stay in the Promethium field for longer and doing nothing. Like your belts will fill up over here, and then you'll be doing nothing. In my experience from testing, you never want too little, you never want too much. The ideal usually from my testing in terms of SPM divided by UPS is where, I don't know if I have one leaving now. I guess this one is this case where your belts have, after it has left, the belts are kind of full, but not full. So some of them are somewhat full, but not fully full. You don't want them to be full, you don't want them to be empty. Now, when it comes to testing for this, because that's an important thing to discuss, if you set this too high, which means that the belts are full, or rather, sorry, the way to test this ideally is you fly to the Promethium field without any eggs, okay? You fill up the belts completely with Promethium, then you station your ship on Nauvis or whatever. It doesn't matter. Before it reaches the southern planet, you can change this around and run tests. However, if you run, let's say you set this to 850, which in my case it doesn't fill the belt again fully. If it doesn't fill the belt fully, you need to do a second run. So in this case with 850, I would start with the belts full. Then I set this to 850. I go through the, maybe it's easier if I go them up. So let's say my ship is over here, right before it reaches the solar system edge. I set it to 850 seconds. I do its run, it goes back. Now when it reaches back to the solar system edge or whatever, I mean the Promethium may still be moving. So when it reaches roughly here, the ship is actually going to look, it's basically going to look like this, right? The belts will be like this basically. But because you started with more Promethium, you will actually have made more science packs than you can actually make. So if after your first run, Spaceman, if after I'm here, I go in, I go out, I see that my belts aren't full, like including my collectors fully full, then I need to continue, go back to Nauvis, drop everything, and then come back and do another run without filling up the belts again. And then from that second run, you get a more accurate number of how much science packs you can actually make. However, if you have set this too high so that the belts fill up fully again, then you don't need to do a second run, because the starting conditions are the same. I hope that made sense. So don't do the naive thing where you fill up the belts and then you go and you do a test, and you do a test with 800 or whatever. It depends on the ship, obviously, because that will overestimate how much science packs you're actually making. You would be making in practice. You need to do one run, because the belts will go to the correct position after one run, regardless. Okay. That explains how to do it. Yeah, again, just to reiterate how difficult it is to fully optimize Promethium ships, because let's say you optimize for this variable. What's the optimal SPM divided by the time? Then you may need to optimize the clocking. Then based on the clocking, you may need to optimize, for example, I don't think I need the 9 cryogenic plants here right now, because I designed it with 9 before I did the clocking here. I could do it with 8, but if I do it with 8, then I need to change these. And then if I change all of these, then it changes the speed. So I need to change the thruster stacking again, throttling. And then maybe I need to change how many eggs I can do, because maybe I can do more now. So it's almost like there is variables which are dependent or whatever with each other. So you can't just greedily optimize for one and be like, okay, I'm done with this. I'm done with this. Now let's do the thruster throttling perfectly. Now let's do the design. Now let's do the clocking. Now let's do the turrets. Because everything depends on each other. There's like 10 different variables. So when you optimize for one, then you need to re-optimize the others, ideally. Obviously, there are diminishing returns for that, but it just gives you an idea that there's always, you can keep squeezing out more and more from your Promethium ships by doing more testing. Yeah, and through this iterative design. I think that kind of covers the basics, and we've covered everything on the, and it's all, yeah, it's been 2 hours, like I said. It's it covers everything on the bidirect system, I think. It covers the hub, and covers the basics about the Promethium science ship itself. Now, from now on, it's gonna be details, so if you guys are interested, stick around, but I think that's pretty much it. And if I don't have links to my blueprints, remind me to add them. Oh yeah. Okay. Oh, there is one more thing. Sorry, I forgot. There is one more thing. I actually have as few cargo bays as possible, and the way to calculate how many you need, when do you have the most items, if you think about it? It's when you're coming back from, when you're coming back, I have 3 million science packs, which takes up more slots than the 1 million eggs. Plus I need to pick up from a kilo, and then go back to novice. And then here I will drop the science packs first and then gather eggs. So the maximum slots, the minimum slots that you need, if you're picking up quantums on the way back and from a kilo, because some people maybe they move the quantums to novice and then they pick them up from there. But if you're doing it this way, it's the science plus the quantums. So 100,000 quantums plus the science packs, which is 3 million divided by 200, 15,000 plus 100 divided by 100, 1,000. So I need 16,000 slots, and as you can see, I have 16,059. So, which is pretty much exactly how much I need for these replacement parts. So yeah, it's that exact. And actually, how long are we? Where are we at now? 2.8 million. We can also watch what happens when it ends, because I have a bunch of biters which spawn, but they just get killed. Now, I don't know if the UPS is worth it, but you definitely get more science from having some more eggs and killing them. Okay. Now, let's talk about the details, and I guess I will start with the stuff that I have seen the least. I kind of already talked about the clocking of the collectors, and I guess there's not much more to talk about here besides that you just need to empirically test for your own ship, like changing this number over and over and finding how much science packs you make and what's your update time over a whole round trip. Yeah, now the biter eggs are finishing here. You can also see what I was talking about. Yeah, I'm also talking about details. I'm also gonna chill a bit, take at my own pace. So if you're watching, be warned, this may take a while. So you see, this will finish with, this is already done with the biter eggs. These are done now. And these are the last ones, but as you see, the Promethium is like, this is full of Promethium now. But I ideally wanted to come over here. And now they're done. Okay. So yeah, if someone has a... can prove to me what's the best way to do the belting, let me know. You see, for example, yeah, these guys are done now. They're not collecting anymore, but I still have 100k to travel. So these are now being wasted, as are these ones. I guess they're still picking up, but yeah, they're gonna fill up eventually. And now they're done. But these ones are still picking up. So I don't know if there's an ideal solution, because at the end of the day, like, at some point you're gonna have the whatever you're doing for balancing or whatever. So if this is where it starts, it's not like these guys can also fill up these belts over here, right? So the position of where they are also plays a role. But the problems, you know, that's one of the problems. Some of the other problems that I am having, I think are solvable. I just don't know exactly what is the optimal solution for it. Because in a way, I want them to optimize these ones, but I also want them to, you know, once these are full, I want them to. I guess personally, I would be okay with going from left to right in terms of priority, but without any of them getting blocked, and with all of them being able to have, you know, full throughput towards any, full throughput from any input to any output. I don't know if that's a TU or a universal or what the fuck, but I need to at some point to do a deep dive into belts and balancing and all that stuff, and so I can understand it properly. All right. A bit about the design here. There's not much to tell. One beacon is more than sufficient to get the throughput needed. I did once check what if I have one of these or more being quality, and it wasn't better, even if the speed wasn't an issue. As far as I remember, yeah. Because you definitely aren't gonna do quality in any other part. If you were gonna do quality for Promethium, it would be on the actual cryogenic plant, but from what my maths told me, it wasn't worth it. Yeah, what else? Besides that, I read the here, I'm not even sure if this is worth it, but I read the contents and pass it on to these guys to disable them. Again, I'm not sure that's worth it. They actually look enabled here, but anyway. Oh yeah, because there is items, but they are disabled because the belt is full. Anything else about the collectors? Not really sure, actually. The gathering. Yeah, I don't know. There's not much to say about the collectors, really. Directly, anyway. Okay, let's talk about this part and how it works. So I probably need to do this somewhere else, because yeah, it's gonna be the pain in the ass. So if I do that. I'm an idiot. Ba-ba-ba-bam. Okay, so here's what happens. Most stuff has an insertion limit. Like here, you can see there's an automated insertion limit, which is 120 in this specific case. Labs actually also have an insertion limit, but you can't see it. But it's really low, even for biolabs with maximum speed and blah blah blah. So, because you can't insert too many science packs, and I can show you that they just stop even at 16. What ends up happening is that, let's say I have one. Now it says 16, and this guy picks it up instantly. Obviously, this is too slow because this is going to take like 12 ticks per trip, and this is going to take only 8. So if I have 2, let it do its thing for a bit. Now he has 6. This guy has 16. He picks them up. Now both of them are going to pick up while he's swinging, which takes like 8 ticks. These have enough time to put in 32. You see? 16 from that guy and another 16 coming in. I don't know whether this synced, but whatever. So you pick 16, but there is another 16 in here. So while this does its back and forth, they have enough time to swing back and get those extra 4 ticks to sync it up with this one. So now they're doing nothing. But now they can start, this one was going immediately after swinging back. I mean, ideally, he would be done already if it was just the one. But now they have 8 ticks, and he needs 8 ticks to go back and forth. I don't know why this one is slower. Let's clean it up. Yeah, now they're synced up. Yeah, that one was messing it up. So that's how it works. And I don't know what happens. I think if I put a third, it actually messes it up. Oh, maybe not. No, it doesn't. Yeah, they just wait an extra tick. Sorry, an extra swing by this one. So that's kind of how it works, and we can, in theory, if these were inserting into something that didn't have this issue, this could do 240 per second. So in theory, they would be enough for 2 of them. And let me just delete them. Oops. Okay. Now they're all gonna pick up. You get 48, so both of them are gonna pick up. Now these are idle because of the automated insertion limit, they can't insert more. But now when these 2 come back, there's only 16 for only one of them. And now that this is picked it up, they can do more. So this one will wait, and this one will always be active. More or less, yeah, basically. So if I do 4, now it will be fine. Because now they're inserting 64, and they picked up 32. So now they have another 32, which they pick up together. Now all of them can start again. So that's how it works. It's the same idea on... This wasn't my idea, by the way. I think someone made this like quite a few months ago, including this, but I think I've done this better, especially including quantums, or at least I didn't see someone include quantums. This is basically the exact same idea, except you do recipe switching. And since this is basically every 8 ticks, I have 7 ticks Promethium science, the research, and 1 tick not. I actually don't know what's the best here. It could be that setting this to 1 or something is better, but this works, so what does better even mean if this works? It's the same idea, but in reverse, and we can actually observe this here. So here we go, there's no recipe, but it doesn't matter because they're inserting. So they just inserted 64. Now these guys can't pick it up while the recipe is there. So now that the recipe is gone, they pick up 64. But these are inserting another 64. But you see, these ones don't stop. And actually, now that I look at it, it may be better to do this, set this to 1, but because sometimes these wait unnecessarily. I'm not sure. Yeah, now with yeah, the thing is, like, I'm also not actually consuming at the max rate. These are, yeah, you see, these are getting stuck. But anyway, it's the same idea. I'm not 100% sure about this one, but same idea. Now the quantums are a bit tricky because you want 1 quantum for every 10 eggs, but I'm inserting. I have 7 for eggs in one of these. Ideally, I would have 10 of these for one of the. So the way I've done it is somewhat complex, but I'm not sure what this is about. I don't remember. Where was the signal actually? This one. All right, because the problem is it's not this one inserting, it's whether the because I have 1 to 2. So the problem with these ones are whether there is room for them to outsert onto. So I'm getting from this one, I'm getting how many I have. If it's less than 84, then I activate it, and same idea with this one. If it's less than, if this belt is less than 84 or this one, so I activate either one depending on whether they have room to outsert. And then for this one, I activate them if both of them have room, so that it's guaranteed when it works. Sorry, if either of them have room, because I want them to both be full. So that's how that works. Then this one, okay, this one is just like if I'm at the solar system edge or at the star planet or going towards or leaving, then activate this because I don't want to be outserting eggs on nauvis or whatever. That's basically it. Nothing too interesting. And then for this one, I guess this is probably like if I'm not on nauvis, because it kept switching on nauvis and it was annoying, I guess. And I don't think that's necessary. I don't remember. Anyway, one good thing about doing it this way is that, check it out, I need, if you look at the recipe, for every 10 eggs I make 10, but 200% extra prod, so for every 10 I make 30, so it's 1 to 3 is the ratio, and I have 7 to there's this one was extra, but it says 22, so actually 21. So 7 to 2 to 1 is a perfect ratio of science pack collectors to biter egg out collectors, I don't know. So yeah, this is nice. There's honestly no way to further improve the throughput here. You may be able to do something with this where you keep switching whether it's outserting. Yeah, you may be able to do something, but really this is basically the limit. I'm actually not hitting the limit now because, like I said, this is the last change I made, and this actually goes below the limit, but I think the limit is 50,400 eggs per minute being consumed. It's the consistent limit. It's actually a bit more at the start. You can see it always peaks at the start a bit higher, and then it drops off. And we'll get to that equilibrium eventually. Okay, what else? So that's the hub. There's nothing too much to talk about these designs. They're kind of nice because they're pretty compact. I guess I'll talk about the thruster stacking first, and about this thing a bit more. So the good thing about putting, first of all, yeah, I save space by putting the lasers here. The chunks can crash into here so they don't travel and take up UPS all the way here. There's also a reason why I put this line over here, because I said I can also put it here or here, right at the edge. If I put it further out, the lasers will fire unnecessarily at stuff, so they take up UPS without protecting the ship. That's one reason. The second reason is, if I have them further out, so something that does happen sometimes is one of the huge asteroids will not get damaged, not get killed or whatever, and will fly in and will clip one of the thrusters. Now, if it clips a thruster, it doesn't matter, right? And as you saw, it doesn't happen that frequently. Right, like I didn't even get one in the last 10 hours. There's 4 in the last 50 hours over 3 ships. Like that's, I don't know, like 200 trips, 1 every 50 trips, whatever. But when I tried this being all the way out here, sometimes it would destroy both the left and the right tile, both the left and the right space platform tile. So if it does it over here, then you can say goodbye to all of these. So it was actually safer and better for UPS to have it 2 tiles after the first 2 engines, while still getting the benefit of not needing this part over here. As for how I did the stuff here, you can check it out at your own time, I guess. It's not that interesting. But yeah, lots of benefits, UPS, safety, blah blah blah. Speed by doing it this way. Alright, there's not much to talk about the collecting here. Again, you can also see these are normal quality laser turrets because I don't want them to fire on things that will not hit the ship. And most of the times, if there is a huge asteroid, they may even kill it because it drifts in really slowly, and that's still a lot of laser turrets shooting at it. And you saw it actually earlier in the video. Let's see, what else? I don't actually. What did I say? 5-hour video. I think the only thing left to talk about is actually the turrets. So maybe, yeah. This also took a lot of testing. Okay. So let's just talk about one of them at a time. Oh, there's also. Oh, wait. I'll do the thruster throttling first, actually. So to do any kind of thruster throttling, you need to get both the speed but also the distance. So to do you get the speed directly, but to do the distance, you need to integrate the speed. If you know a bit of maths and physics, I guess, it's a pretty simple thing to do. So the way it's done is, this was kind of smart. This wasn't my idea, so it's somewhere else. But basically, this speed is multiplied by the direction. So now I'm leaving the Promethium field, so it's minus speed in a way. Oh, okay. This is actually the memory cell that this is basically what keeps track of the distance, but it's not in the actual kilometers. Let's put it that way. So if I am in the Sarah planet, then keep the distance. And this has a loop with the green signal, so this keeps the distance, but this distance is in ticks in a way. So I need to divide by 60, and this is the actual distance. And you can see it's pretty accurate. 500k, 500k from, yeah. There is the system somewhere else, but it's basically these 4 to get the distance from the solar system edge. Now, for the rest of it, I basically bracketed the distance. Let me start from, actually, yeah, let me start from the end, kind of. This is kind of the start. So my ship, let me go again to the kills, or rather this. How many biter eggs I was using would not peak until I go to 400,000 kilometers into the Promethium field. That's why the first, let's say, breakpoint, I don't know what to call it, the first bracket is between 400 and 425. I actually turned out not to do any kind of throttling. That was this one. Then it's 425 to 450, and then I do 62%, which may sound like a lot, but it's not actually 62% throttling. This is why this isn't a very intuitive system. And then it's another 25k, 65, and it changes. And this is while I'm leaving the Saturn planet. But then I also had the same thing when going to the Saturn planet, and these numbers were actually a bit lower because, again, don't forget, when you're going towards it, you have, actually when you're leaving, you have 20 kilometers per second extra. Because that's how spaceships work. Now, besides that, what do I have here? Yeah, this was beyond 550. Yeah, for some reason I have this at the end. And then if it's on novice, it basically pauses the thruster to completely, but that was just to for UPS reasons. Yeah, it's just a clock that sends this signal whenever it's supposed to these ones mainly. Now, the important part is the bracketing, and then what's your target speed in a way. Even though this isn't actual speed, in practice it's speed. It somehow translates to speed. Now, the reason I say this isn't too important, but it's just an intuitive for the viewer, and for me actually, is because in practice, even if you set a speed that theoretically is correct, you will need to go and change it around and test it over and over again. So what I ended up doing is, so for example, I would reach the 400,000 kilometers, which I said is at what point I reach the saturation of my belts. And then I would say, let's say I would change this value. And then watch the belts and see, are any of these getting stuck because the belt is full? Are they underfed? So I would check for both of these. I would try to keep these as fed as possible without saturating the belts. And I would play around with these numbers. And this was very iterative because if you make it go too fast over here, then you need to reduce this further. So how can I say, this being at 62 and this at 65, setting this to 63 and this to 64 may be equally good in a way. So the numbers kind of depend on each other because they affect how saturated the belt will be. But yeah, the idea is to keep it at peak production without blocking any of these. That's the idea. And then at the end, with a little cut here, you want to do the cut here so that you saturate the belt as much as possible, because you're going to be leaving the dense part of the Promethium field. Okay. Finally, we go into the quality of the turrets. Well, actually, there's also the turret rotation. That's one thing I didn't talk about. Yeah, that's kind of important. I should have talked about it in the basic part. Oh well. So, let's look at something over here. You see where the coverage stops kind of here, but if you'll notice, I do get asteroids that get destroyed further back, right? Like now one got destroyed over here. So the actual railgun shots actually go past this red coverage. Now, if I set this to legendary, you see the coverage is basically right at the bounding box. I mean, a bit below. The problem with legendary is that, okay, it's gonna, like, it overshoots anyway. So your shot is, you're destroying the asteroids further away from the ship, but you're also killing less asteroids per shot because you're aiming at them when they're further away. To be more precise, if I aim at an asteroid over here, on average, I'm gonna have less asteroids behind it than if I aimed it when it was here, right? Because there's more of them will have spawned behind it if I aim at it when it's over here. So that's one reason why you might prefer epic. Again, going for one of the variables. We talked about, I talked about 3 variables, I think. So if you turn it to epic, they will do more damage per shot. They will kill more huge Promethium, more huge asteroids per shot. Also, if it's epic, you're less likely to shoot at asteroids over here, right? Okay, second reason. On average, you are destroying the asteroids closer to the ship. So again, you're gaining UPS. So in this case, we're gaining UPS, both in terms of damage per shot, but also in terms of chunks and how many asteroids there are, you know, available or whatever your computer has to process. The disadvantage is you're more likely to get hit by an asteroid. But it turns out, in my testing, epic was the sweet spot. With rare, I would get damaged very, very quickly. So in other words, legendary didn't give me any advantage over epic because I had the same amount of protection, while epic also gained me some UPS. Oh god, I also didn't talk about, yeah, fuck. I didn't talk about researches. Damn it, I completely forgot. Okay, so for researches, railgun shooting speed, this used to be the hardest one. It used to be 24 was the limit, but now it's actually only 10, so yeah, just get level 10. It's super quick. I do assume in my builds that I have 300% in the productivity bonuses, by the way. But I want to talk mainly about the damage. Once the laser doesn't matter as much. I think the ship can easily work with even level 20 probably. The important ones are these two, and especially rockets. So for rockets, you want this at level 24 minimum. 23 can also be okay. The thing that you gain with 24 is that because it's all about breakpoints with these things, it's not about average theoretical DPS. When you have level 24, you can one-shot medium Promethium asteroids with just the area of effect damage of the explosive rocket. So that's an important breakpoint. That's kind of a must. Now for projectile damage, I would absolutely recommend that for Promethium ships you go for red ammo. And for red ammo, the last breakpoint is at level 27. I've gotten it to 30, but that's for yellow ammo. It's a very minor improvement on yellow ammo for medium asteroids. Just saves a bit of UPS, I guess. But beyond 27, it does not matter for red ammo. Like the next breakpoint is like years away or something. The last breakpoint for explosives is at 31, at which point I think you can two-shot some stuff, and funnily enough, it might actually break my ship. We'll see. We'll find out in a while. But that's the last breakpoint. Yeah, it's basically 30, 31, 10, and this, in theory, it doesn't have a break. Yeah, this is, yeah. But for these two, going past 30 and 31 takes years before the next breakpoint, and for this one, yeah, it caps out at, it's a hard cap at 10. Yeah, because the actual damage is like at level 2 or something, I don't even remember. Okay. Now, for gun turrets, I did not find any UPS benefit to reducing the quality. So I stuck with legendary, and it actually may have been slightly better if I got a few more of them. But you kind of do want to have as few gun turrets as possible, and you do want to vary the. You see, like the priorities are kind of reversed. so that this one prioritizes smallies. But if I have only mediums, it will prioritize the metallic. Whereas this one, it's last priority the metallic. So that means if this one does destroy, if there is a metallic over here and a promethium medium over here, this one will shoot the medium promethium, and then try to move to the metallic, but this one probably has destroyed it. So after both of these are destroyed, then this will focus on the promethium, so it doesn't have to. The whole point is to not have them turn on left and right that much. Whereas this one, it destroyed the medium, so now it's going to go to these small ones, which are the top priority. So kind of the whole point between these two is to minimize how much turning they do left and right. Okay, I guess I didn't finish with the railguns. Okay. I mean, I guess I talked about in my railgun mod as well a little bit, but the main issue with railguns is that if you put them sparsely so that you get more collectors, and I think I need to go to a different. What will happen once every 1 billion asteroids, one of the huge ones may come through over here, and these ones keep shooting off to the right, to the left, either because it got mainly because it got damaged, or because the target priority wasn't the best. You got unlucky. The problem is these huge asteroids. In theory, you can shoot them from all the way up here or whatever, but in practice, when one tries to sneak through because you got unlucky with the priorities, you basically have from here up to here to shoot it. And my thought was, I have a system here, which I have changed now, but in the past, it would rotate through all 4 of them. So with this system, when it was rotating through all 4 of them, and with my mod that makes the railgun tires not care about health, this guaranteed that in the worst case scenario, once every 4 shots would be at the closest huge asteroid. The problem was, 4 shots can take a long time, and isn't enough time to go from here to here. So this was the last change I made to the ship, which was instead of rotating through all 4, I rotate through the first 2 with this guy, and with the ones to each side, with this guy and this one, I rotate through the other 2 as top priorities. So that means that this one can easily super prioritize these 2 so that neither of them gets through to him, or over here, so in a way it covers this area. And then for the other 2 asteroids, if this turret is unlucky, this one and this one probably can cover this one. So this one can cover this part, or whatever, this part. And this one can cover this part, or whatever, this part. And in practice, it seems to have worked for 800 hours, for like 4,000 trips. So that was the last change I made, and I think maybe after this change I don't even need the mod that I have, because I kind of did both things at the same time. Sorry, I did the mod first and then I did change this, so now I'm not even sure the mod is needed for my ship specifically, but I like the mod anyway. I think it's kind of silly the way they function. If you have never seen this with your ships, once you see it the first time, you will think, what the fuck is this? Because you may see a bunch of them shooting at asteroids back here, and then there's one with half HP, 70% HP just coming slowly, and they're not shooting it, and then boom. And it destroys your whole ship. So once you see like 4 of them avoiding it, you're like, what the fuck, this ship? I did think of one solution to this, by the way. So that your ship doesn't get destroyed, it just gets damaged, but it survives if you have replacement parts, which is probably the most cursed thing I've ever said. You take a normal quality. So what's the problem with railguns? They compete for space here, right? Well, guess what? What if you set this one to target every huge asteroid, but you put it back here? So you have one here, you know, one here, whatever. So if a huge asteroid does get through, at least you're gonna kill it, and it's not gonna just go through the entire ship. So you can solve that issue, you know, keep the railguns to a minimum in the front without affecting the collectors, and without using mods. But yeah, there you go. That's my solution, so that you can keep as many collectors in the front as you can. As for how this works, there is this one is on hold. This will carry up to 8 railgun ammo. The ammo gets added to some other numbers, which are, it used to be 1, 2, 3, 4. Then you do, it used to be mod 4, but now it's mod 2 because it's only 2 of them, and because this value keeps changing, the mod between these two signals keeps changing which one will be prioritized. And then I add back some numbers, because if you are doing mod, one of the signals will not be 0, it will be null. So yeah, so I need to add them back. I think if we kept all of the signals, even if they were 0, then I wouldn't need this, but whatever. I guess it would also need this to work with 0 signals or something. I don't know. Anyway, the most complex one and the hardest to optimize was actually the rocket turrets. So, I have one that is... Do I have active? I guess I don't, huh? I do. You can see how the normal quality ones generally stay inactive. You can also see it from their damage. Look at the damage of a normal quality one versus this one. It's like orders of magnitude higher. Right. So, first of all, the one that is the highest quality, you want it to, its first priority should be big Promethiums. Why Promethiums? Because let's say you have a big Promethium here and a bunch of the other ones nearby it. You will target the big Promethium, fire, I think 2 or 3 shots, I don't remember. I think 3 with level 24 up to 30. Those 3 shots, the 3 of them will destroy the big Promethium directly. The first 2 will destroy the big, you know, the big ones, the other ones. The first 2 will destroy with splash, with AoE damage, these ones. And then the third one will destroy also the mediums with AoE from these ones. So that's why you wanted to top priority big Promethiums with the one that has the highest quality. The biggest problem in terms of UPS for rocket turrets is that they often fire at some... if all of them are legendary, they will all fire in the same area, and you really don't need this many rockets. Like, yeah, you don't need that many rockets to destroy an area. So that's why you kind of want to vary the quality. In a way, the other thing you could do is have them all rare quality, but put them one behind the other, and then have more of them here. But this does kind of the same thing, right? So, now I can't tell you why from all of my tests, why I found this specific setup to be the best. And also, besides the priorities you see here, this one also prioritizes mediums, which sometimes turns out to do damage to my ship, but whatever, this was the best UPS wise. Arguably, if I had more gun turrets in the front, this wouldn't be needed, but anyway, this is what I ended up with, and I didn't want to bother changing it because I would need to change the whole ship, because if I had more gun turrets and I needed more ammo, I would also need to change the ammo production here and then re-optimize my ship layout completely, because everything is super tight. So yeah. Let me reiterate again how difficult it is to optimize Promethium ships. The only other thing I would add is that this prioritizes big oxides, which are actually the most common asteroid. and big Promethium is the second most common. Promethium actually doesn't become the most common in the route until like, yeah, until like 800, what is it, by 900k, which most ships are never even gonna fly that far. Like my ship goes up to 700k, something like that. I don't remember. So yeah, that's the reason. I don't know, it's possible that putting big Promethium here as top priority too may also be good, but I thought if this is targeting it, then probably this one is too. So, maybe this is busy firing here and maybe this can fire over here. You know, I don't know. And then these ones are just gonna back up, which almost never work. So yeah, the whole point was minimize how many rockets I'm using, and with this little trick, optimizing a bit the damage as well. And now, why did I go with this? Why not do epic and then, let's say, you know, uncommon here and then rare here, because that's kind of the same thing. It's because I didn't need it. I'm equally safe with this, but because I'm destroying them closer to the ship, I get better UPS. Okay, so I'm not even at 3 hours. And I'm not sure what else to talk about, come to think of it. Thankfully, this isn't 5 hours. I guess let's go through the rest and see if there's anything else to talk about. Oh yeah, the corners are a bit tricky. So here, because the corners are definitely more damage here, all of these are rare. I have a bit more gun turrets here. Still, you can see I try to minimize how much I destroy so that they stay here, but it seems like I'm destroying almost all of the big ones. I did need 3 railgun turrets here, 2 were not enough. I actually had to cut one of the collectors here, which is ugly, but I had to. The laser turrets here are uncommon, here they're normal quality. The clocks here are not that interesting. One thing to take note of is that these outsiders can only do up to 8 railgun ammo. They can't do 8. They can't do more than 8. So even though this stacks to 10, there's no point expecting 10 to be picked up from them. That's one minor detail. For my power production, I have some extra, these are extra, which act as batteries, but I don't think I even need them. I just have them because they're better than solar panels. The belting is kind of complex. Look at this part here. Blue brings in railgun ammo and whatever, turret ammo. Red brings in the fusion cells, because they goes that way. And then green is actually explosive rockets, which, because I need more, I couldn't fit it onto the blue anyway. Yeah, they go through, you save so much space with this. It's a pain in the ass to make, but yeah. You go through here, go through down here, blah blah blah. The fusion cells come through. The ammo goes up through these, over here. More spaghetti and arrives over here. Okay, what else? What is this red signal for? Oh, to slip these inserters. Anything else? Anything else? Let me pause it for a second to think if there's anything else. Okay, so one thing I can add is that in this build, for explosives, you need to get rid of, I think, mainly carbon. And I found the best way to do it is dropping into space. Actually, dropping into space is almost as good as chest to chest inserting. I guess in this case would be belt to chest. It's only slightly worse. It's way better than recycling or throwing them into a furnace. I mean, you can't throw these into a furnace, but yeah, there is no better way to get rid of them. It's mainly a visual thing. I actually expect this to be really bad since asteroids and chunks are really bad, but I guess the computer doesn't need to track it for any reason. It's just a visual thing. So yeah, that's the best way to get rid of stuff. I don't remember. I think I tested with lava as well. Obviously, you can't do this on the spaceship, but I don't remember what the results were. I actually don't remember. But I think I actually pretty much covered all of it. Out of all the stuff to get working, I'd say this and this were the hardest. Yeah, there's not much with the rockets and these. This is the hardest exactly because of this, and I guess I can talk about this because it's not specific to Promethium ships, but it's a good time to talk about it. So here what I have is this needs sulfur and carbon. This needs only sulfur, but I wanna give stuff to both of them, right? So the problem was, when does this get stuck, right? Because if I have any of these items, then I don't care. But if one of them is empty and I need it, and then it's stuck because of carbon, let's say, then that's a problem. So the way to figure that out is you go here, you look at the recipe, and the recipe gives you the products are 5 carbon and 2 sulfur. And then you look here and you see the automated insertion limit, which is 7. So you need to multiply that 7 with the products. So 7 times 2 is 14 sulfur, and 7 times 5 carbon is 35 carbon. So this crusher will consider the carbon output to be full if it's 35 or higher, and the sulfur output to be full if it's 14 or higher. So the insertion limit, 7 times the products. Now, the productivity bonus does not matter for this. There may be some other recipes where, I don't know, where this may be different, but yeah, because here you have one input. So if you needed 2 carbonic asteroid chunks for 5, let's say you needed 2 carbonic asteroid chunks for 2 sulfur, but the insertion limit was still 7, then it would be 1-to-1 ratio basically. So the output would be full at 7. But anyway, maybe I'm confusing you too much. That's when it gets full. This is why I have these things here. So this says get rid of sulfur if I have above or equal to 14. So the output is full and the carbon is 0. And there is no carbonic asteroids left. Or because if there are carbonic asteroids left, I mean, if they're here, I'm gonna take them out. It's just that this one is stuck right now. Or how do I get rid of them? Oh yeah, I send them back and forth here. But the other thing to know about the automated insertion limit is that what it does is once you're past the automated insertion limit, or one of the outputs is full, like it is now with those yellow things showing, then the inserters won't pick up anymore to put in the input. But anything that is already in the input will still be processed. So that's why this is with equal 0, because this means I have some asteroids still, so they may keep getting processed and giving me stuff, right? So I don't need to remove anything yet. Let's just wait and see. But if the carbonic ever gets to 0 and I still have an asteroid inside, and I have over 48, and why over 48? Because I'm crafting 2 every time, and the stack size is 50. So 50 minus 2 is 40. 50, the stack size, minus 2 from the craft, is 48. Which means if I have over 48, so if I have 49 or 50, that means one of these, either the bonus or the normal craft, can't finish, even though I have an asteroid, so it can finish, and then give me more carbon. So that means now it's not stuck because of the because of the output being full, because the machine it thinks it's full because the stack size is full. And the machine can't finish that craft even though it is crafting. So I guess another way to see it is in this case the machine isn't even trying to craft because it's not getting any more carbonics, asteroid. Whereas here it is trying to craft but it can't finish the craft because the output is literally full. So this determines, and this is vice versa, this is for the carbonic, when to get rid of it. That gets rid of it very consistently. Also, this was someone else's idea. It seemed to work fine in practice. Doesn't seem like they ever get stuck, although I think some detail is... Yeah, these guys only insert if... Yeah, they try not to fill this too much. Yeah, this one. Basically only inserts if there is 1 or 0 carbonics in here. Basically. And then the rest is just direct insertion. It's... I mean, the set... I don't know how good it looks, but yeah, that's basically it. Why do I have these still? What? Huh. Okay, I don't think these are meant to be here anymore. Okay, well, I mean, I'll have to change that in my actual game because I'm gonna reload. But yeah, these aren't needed anymore. I guess I forgot to delete them. Are they like that in all my ships? Huh. I guess so. Oh no, I deleted them on this one. Yes, I deleted them on one of them, I guess. Not the others. Anyway. So that was complex. As far as this one goes, I mean, you can see the belting yourself. It's pretty spaghetti here. It did need a big, quite a bit of a buffer of oxides. The ice that is produced by these ones goes through and gets prioritized here, like that, over the extra ice that you need from direct stuff, so no ice is wasted. Yeah, and then the you know, the oxides that I get, the asteroids that I get back are actually looped with priority. I think that's about it. I think that's pretty much it. And now you can see it in its glory. Easily blasting through and making a lot of science. Peaks at 145k per minute. So yeah, some things that can be improved. These things here are just like how much I need and stuff. I don't remember exactly. This also says even though these show 8.5k per second, in practice they can't do more than 7.5k, and the ones that say 7.4k, they actually can't do more than 6,850. So that helps you with calculations, and this is how much I needed. These are accurate. I don't remember if these are accurate, but anyway, not a big deal. Literally aren't needed. Yeah, I don't think there's anything else. I think I pretty much covered everything. The thing that's missing is just how much testing it needs, and even at this point, like I could re-optimize so many things but it takes a long time to redesign the ship. Even just deleting one of these, because I was thinking, oh, if I delete one, then I can have one here, and then it looks nicer, and maybe I can do something better for the eggs so that they're more equal, and yeah, especially the belting over here, blah, blah, blah. But then you change it, they also change the ship's speed, so you need to re-optimize these if you want to be actually optimal. Anyway, that was my attempt. To my knowledge, this is the best ship out there. Again, one of these needs, like, on my computer, which is 9800 XTD, and decently overclocked. on Clean Editor, it's, I'd say the whole Promethium altogether, roughly 2 milliseconds per 1000 science per second. 2 milliseconds. Which is not bad at all. Like, on average. Obviously, when it's in the Promethium field, it takes much more, but on average. And for the record, the wait, yeah, that's for one. Yeah, that's for 1000 per second. 2 milliseconds. So for 3000 per second, which is what I'm aiming, 6 milliseconds, it's not that bad. That still leaves me with 10 milliseconds for all the other sciences to get to like 3-4 million SPM, something like that. I don't know if people would want proof of the UPS test and stuff. I was thinking of doing something cheesy with like putting some epic music here and watching it fly, although it's not as epic without the explosions. But yeah, okay. That will do it. Thanks for watching. Let me know about any questions, suggestions for this, etc. I also have finished the White Science ship. Nowhere near as much to talk about here. And yeah, a lot of the concepts, if you've watched it, there's really very little to talk about here if you understood the concepts about the asteroids and the collectors and the clocking of the collectors. Yeah, for this one, it will mainly be about this, basically. You already know that the ship should probably be squarish, it should be as small as possible, and blah blah blah. So yeah. Okay. Thanks for watching, everyone. You made it this far. Too bad for the people who I told them they can switch off the video, because I did talk about some basics later. Yeah, I may upload the White Science one as well today, because yeah, there's not that much to talk about. It will probably be like a less than 30-minute video. Stay tuned. Bye bye.